Welcome back to the deep dive. All right, look, it is October 31st. It's Halloween, motherfucker. And that means, yeah, we are officially wading deep into some serious digital dread tonight.
Forget the pumpkin spice lattes.
Exactly. We're diving headfirst into the grim, irradiated world of the Fallout universe. You know, supposedly all dark comedy and retrofuturism.
Supposedly. But beneath that 1950s atomic cheer and the ink spots on the radio, Fallout's built on this, fundamental existential nightmare. And the terror we're digging into today, it's not just, giant scorpions or guys in power armor.
No, this is weirder.
Yeah, our mission today, and this is all based on the frankly horrifying source material you listeners sent over, is to figure out where that line blurs, between the official game lore, what's actually scary in the game, and the genuinely fucked up, soul-crushing dread that players themselves have cooked up.
We are talking about the kind of stuff that makes you question the game, maybe the developer's sanity, maybe even like your own grip on reality a little bit. And today, we kick things off with an absolute legend of digital dread. A ghost in the machine. We're talking about a mysterious radio broadcast that seems to know way, way too much about our world, not the wasteland.
We are going deep, deep into the infamous Fallout 3 number station creepypasta. It's a classic. Then we're going to break down how the modding community and these unofficial alternate reality games, ARGs, they intentionally crank up the fear factor.
Right.
Turning the, kind of quirky capital wasteland or the Commonwealth into a dedicated balls-to-the-wall survival horror hellscape.
Yeah.
It's really a story about players actively choosing psychological terror over the game's built-in dark humor.
Okay, let's do this. Let's unpack this monster, starting with the ghost in the GNR machine and maybe the real-world paranoia that kind of birthed this whole nightmare in the first place. All right, so before we even step foot in irradiated DC, we got to set the scene, right? This whole myth, this whole creepypasta, it's built on the real-world concept of a number station. What the hell is that, actually? And why does it fit the Fallout vibe so perfectly?
Okay, so a number station. It's genuinely one of the spookiest, most enduring sort of artifacts of the Cold War. Still happens today, actually.
Really?
Oh, yeah. In real life, these are shortwave radio broadcasts.
Oh.
And they transmit these, really repetitive, super unusual coded messages. Usually it's just strings of numbers, right? Sometimes read by a creepy synthetic voice, sometimes a real person, sometimes it's just weird music or static beforehand.
The ultimate spooky, lo-fi secret message system. But why? Why use something so basic instead of, I don't know, encrypted emails or satellite stuff?
Well, the main hypothesis is kind of threefold, and it all feeds the paranoia. First, it's basically untraceable. Shortwave radio signals bounce all over the atmosphere, pinpointing the origin, especially if it's broadcasting globally, super hard. Almost impossible to jam effectively, too.
Okay, sneaky.
Second, it's simple. The theory goes that intelligence agencies, like MI6 or the CIA or the KGB back in the day, use these to talk to their sleeper agents, spies, deep undercover.
Right.
If you're a spy behind enemy lines, you don't want complex gear that can be found. You just need a cheap, easily available shortwave radio and your one-time pad, your decryption key. Simple, effective, deniable.
Maximum paranoia, minimum tech. That is perfect for the Fallout Atom Punk world, where, the internet basically stalled out pre-war and everything's running on vacuum tubes and paranoia.
Absolutely. It plugs right into that specific kind of analog dread, that feeling that there are secret messages humming just beneath the surface noise of everyday life.
Right.
And these broadcasts, they often only appear at weird, irregular times. You can't just tune in whenever.
Right.
Which makes it feel like if you do catch one, the information must be incredibly important, maybe catastrophic.
Which brings us right back to Fallout 3 and this myth, this rumor that started spreading like wildfire among players. The idea that if you did a very specific, almost ritualistic sequence of things in the game.
Yeah, almost deliberately breaking the game's flow.
That Galaxy News Radio, GNR, the main station, the voice of the wasteland with the smooth-talking three-dog, it would just switch. Flip over to this terrifying coded numbers broadcast instead.
And the steps themselves, the supposed criteria, it's almost like a symbolic dismantling of everything comfortable and familiar in the game. Step 1, you absolutely must kill the original host, Three Dog.
Which is messed up. He's like the soul of the radio, the voice of hope, kind of.
Exactly. It's an act of narrative chaos. You silence the wasteland's main source of reassurance.
Yeah.
And who replaces him?
He gets replaced by Margaret, right, the technician, who's super bland and you never actually see her.
That's critical. You trade this charismatic, larger-than-life DJ for this clinical, impersonal voice. It's like the uncanny valley of radio hosts. And because she's just a voice, never a physical NPC in the world, she becomes this unknowable, untouchable entity. You literally cannot find her to interact with her or, kill her.
Ugh. Amplifies the dread. You can't shoot the voice of fear.
Precisely. You're actively removing the main source of friendly human contact and flavor from the game's soundscape.
Okay, so step 1, murder the DJ. What else do you have to screw up in the game?
Step 2, you have to deliberately keep GNR weak. You need to skip the main quest objective where you boost its signal across the whole Capital Wasteland.
How do you do that?
You can usually pass a speech check to get around it, or just sequence break the plot, but the result is the same. The station's signal remains fragile, localized. And why does that matter for the myth?
Let me guess. Because if the number station does take over, a weak signal means it's going to be hard as hell to find. Obscure.
Exactly. It makes the supposed phenomenon rare, difficult to tune into, something only the most dedicated or maybe the most paranoid players would even stumble upon. It rewards that obsessive searching.
Okay, kill the DJ, keep the signal weak. What's the final nail in the coffin? The big, chaotic trigger that supposedly flips the switch.
The destruction of Raven Rock. That's the main event. The moment the creepypasta claims makes the change permanent. Raven Rock is, the primary base for the Enclave in Fallout 3.
The shadowy remnants of the pre-war US government. The deep state conspiracy, guys.
Right. So destroying their main base, it carries this symbolic weight.
Yeah.
You fundamentally messed with the established power structures, the D-State secrets. Maybe you've accidentally activated some kind of hidden emergency broadcast network. A dead man switch.
It's the ultimate, oh shit, what have I actually done moment in the plot, weaponized by this creepypasta. But here's the kicker, right? The source material, the original write-ups of this myth, they're pretty clear.
Yeah.
That the vast majority of players who actually do all 3 things, kill 3 dogs, skip the signal boost, blow up Raven Rock, they still just hear regular GNR. Maybe with Margaret hosting, but still the normal music and PSAs.
And that's the twisted genius of the myth. It doesn't die just because it doesn't work for most people. In fact, it gets stronger. Because the believers, the ones who want it to be true, they just argue, oh, well, the real trigger must be even more obscure, more esoteric. Maybe it involves dropping a specific item in a specific place at a specific time. Or maybe it's just totally random, a glitch. The fact that it's unreliable makes it more mysterious, not less.
It forces players to question their own playthrough, their own reality within the game. Did I miss something? Was I not obsessive enough? The horror is making you doubt yourself.
Exactly. It becomes unfalsifiable, which is the hallmark of a great conspiracy theory.
Okay, so let's say, hypothetically, a player does hit this cosmic lottery of fuck-ups. They do everything right according to the myth. The radio goes silent, and then flickers back. Signal lost, signal found. But because they kept GNR weak, they now have to physically hunt for this new creepy signal, right? They can't just hear it anywhere.
Correct. You have to work for your dread. You need to go high, really high. The myth rewards you for climbing to the desolate, irradiated peaks and ruined structures of the Capital Wasteland. You need elevation to catch this weak, supposedly altered signal.
And the specific locations mentioned in the creepypasta where players claim they finally heard it, they're key to the whole atmosphere, aren't they? They become these little points of dreadful pilgrimage.
Totally. It turns the game map into a search for these cursed listening posts.
So paint the picture. Where are we talking about? Give us the scenery for listening to digital doom.
All right, imagine scrambling up the rusting skeletal remains of those huge SATCOM arrays way out in the desolate northwestern corner of the map. These giant, dish-shaped relics of the pre-war world, now just silently collecting static and maybe something else.
Creepy.
Or climbing the highest points of the mountains near the ruins of Raven Rock itself. That's often cited as the easiest place to catch it initially, right after the supposed trigger event.
Okay.
But the most, evocative, the one that really hammers home the absurd horror of it all, the very top of the rusted, creaking Ferris wheel at Point Lookout.
Oh my God, so you're telling me you're dangling hundreds of feet in the air on a rickety, irradiated carnival ride, probably swaying in the radioactive wind, looking out over this creepy, mutated swamp, just trying to tune your Pip-Boy radio to pick up a signal that might be predicting the end of the world.
That is exactly the image. It's next-level atmospheric dread. It's Lynchian. It turns the act of simply listening to the radio into this terrifying, isolated, almost sacred ritual. The landscape itself becomes a series of shrines to this myth.
Jesus. Okay, so you're up there, heart pounding, finally. The signal crackles in. What do you actually hear? What drops the psychological hammer?
You hear the voice. It's unmistakably Three Dog, or rather, his voice actor, the fantastic Eric Dellums. But it's wrong. All the charisma, the energy, the hope, gone.
How does he sound?
The descriptions are consistent. Monotone, flat, deeply depressed, utterly devoid of emotion. Like the voice of a man forced to read things so terrible they've broken him. Or maybe the voice of someone or something just mimicking him badly.
Oh, that's chilling. Just the voice is wrong. So what's the actual content? Is it complex military code? Spy stuff?
No, and that's what makes it even creepier, more immediate somehow. It's deliberately simple. It's just lists of single digits. Only single digits.
1, 2, 3.
Exactly like that. Crucially, the myth says it's never multi-digit numbers like 11 or 21 or 47, always spoken as individual digits. 9, 3, 7, 9, 1, 7, 2, 0, 3, 4.
How long are the strings?
Usually between 9 and 12 digits long, according to the reports. Just these raw strings of numbers read by this dead, broken voice.
A dead man reading numbers from a haunted Ferris wheel. Got it. What else?
That string of numbers is then followed by a burst of Morse code. Beeps and boops, and the length of the Morse code varies wildly, apparently, sometimes short, sometimes really long.
Okay, numbers, then Morse code.
And then, the final kick in the teeth. The music. But it's not the usual GNR mix. It's just one song, looping, endlessly.
Let me guess. I don't want to set the world on fire?
Bingo. The quintessential Fallout 3 theme, the sound of the apocalypse, now stripped of its ironic context and just paired with this cold, coded insanity. All the other cheerful ink spots tunes, the swing music, gone. Just that one haunting refrain over and over between the numbers and the Morse code.
That is the ultimate earworm of existential despair. Wow. Okay, let's move into cracking that code, because this is where it goes from spooky in-game myth to something else, something meta.
Right. So the community, the people obsessed with this, they naturally started trying to decipher it all. The Morse code, that turned out to be the easiest part, relatively speaking.
Right. Morse is a known quantity. What did it translate to?
It translated into lists of short, often punchy messages in English. And this is where the really unsettling stuff begins, because the content of these messages had this brutal, jarring contrast.
You mentioned some mundane stuff earlier, like things that shouldn't even be in the Fallout universe, mixed with doom.
Exactly. You get these utterly banal, almost comical messages right alongside things that hinted at genuine dread or conspiracy. It's the whiplash that makes it so effective.
Hey, give me an example of the mundane.
Okay, so one reported message was literally just, wash the car today, maybe Chinese for dinner.
Seriously, wash the car in the post-apocalypse.
Right. Or another one, just as banal, think I'll nap, I'm tired. This kind of domestic, everyday chatter, like reading someone's slightly boring diary entries from our world, that's what makes the intrusion so damn weird. It suggests the broadcaster isn't just sending coded messages about our world, but maybe living in it. Like a spy sending their personal logs along with a high-level intel.
And then there was the one message that just completely shatters the fourth wall, breaks the Fallout lore entirely.
Oh yeah, the infamous one. Yep. Have you watched my YouTube video yet? I uploaded myself kicking bums in the nuts.
Hold the fuck up, YouTube. Bum kicking videos. In Fallout.
Exactly. Hold the goddamn phone. The Fallout timeline diverges massively from ours right after World War II. Their entire technological development path is different. Vacuum tubes, atomic cars, clunky robots. But not the internet as we know it. Definitely not video sharing platforms like YouTube. The very concept of uploading a bum-kicking video,
yeah,
that just shouldn't exist in that universe.
So that message, that's the core anomaly, isn't it? That's what made this whole number station myth so damn sticky and viral.
Absolutely. Because it immediately suggests the game isn't just broadcasting secrets from within its own fiction. It suggests the game somehow is tuning into a frequency outside its own reality. Maybe our reality.
Which is terrifying. It makes that fourth wall feel incredibly thin and fragile. It's not just a message from the future within the game's world. It's a message from our present, broadcast into their alternative past.
Nailed it. This single message elevated the number station from just a cool, spooky in-game secret, like finding a unique weapon, to this potential evidence of a canonical instability in the game's reality. If the game knows about YouTube, what else does it know about us? about our world.
And that's where those strings of numbers come back in, right? Because the next leap the community made was claiming these weren't just random digits, they were predictive. They corresponded to real-world events that happened after Fallout 3 was released.
This was a big one. The moment that turned believers into fanatics, the supposed proof. The breakthrough came when a player or a group of players recognized one specific number string.
Which one?
It was 12055282010, and the Morse code message that followed it was reportedly, "What are you talking about? You'll be missed."
Okay, numbers and a slightly cryptic message.
Someone recognized that number string, 12.05528210. That's the reported time and date of the death of the actor Gary Coleman. And the quote, "What you talking about?" was his famous catchphrase from Different Strokes.
Holy shit. Okay, wait. So the claim is that the game, released in 2008, contained a coded message accurately predicting the date, time, and even referencing the catchphrase of a celebrity death that happened 2 years later.
That is the claim, and that is the kind of chilling synchronicity that fuels 1,000 internet conspiracy theories. Suddenly, it's not just a game, it's an oracle.
Wow. Was that the only hit, or did they find others?
They claimed a second, equally chilling one, the number string 94542021010, and the Morse code. Accident in the Gulf, several dead, oil spill apparently averted.
Okay. 9.4542020010, that timing.
Recognized as matching the initial reports of the BP Deepwater Horizon explosion in the Gulf of Mexico. And crucially, the message includes that detail. Oil spill apparently averted, which reflects the faulty, overly optimistic initial reports before the true scale of the disaster became clear.
So, this creepy radio station inside a post-apocalyptic video game isn't just predicting real-world tragedies, it's somehow reporting on the inaccurate initial public spin of those tragedies. That gives the whole thing this weirdly specific, almost sinister intelligence. Like, it has access to breaking news, but flawed breaking news.
It deepens the mystery, right? It's not just predicting, it's commenting. And it gets even weirder because the community then started finding messages that didn't just predict the future but seemed to rewrite the past, suggesting historical revisionism, pushing the paranoia sideways through time, basically challenging the official history of our reality.
Whoa, okay. Rewriting history. Like what's the specific historical bombshell they supposedly found coded in there?
The big one mentioned in the sources relates to Lincoln's assassination. A message supposedly dated 22.15 April 15, 1865, that's 10.15 p.m., the night Lincoln was shot. The message read, "He's dead and blame will probably be placed on that actor booth. Johnson better not cheat me out of the payment."
Wait, what? That implies that Lincoln's assassination wasn't just John Wilkes Booth acting alone, but a paid hit, possibly organized by powerful figures. And it even seems to implicate his own vice president, Andrew Johnson, in the conspiracy. Johnson better not cheat me out of the payment.
That's the implication. It takes the core Fallout theme, that governments are corrupt, secretive, and capable of horrific things, and projects it backwards onto one of the most foundational moments in American history. It's basically saying, hey, the world you think you know, the past you believe in, it's just as much of a lie as the Voltec propaganda in our world.
That is deeply paranoid and perfectly Fallout. But okay, let's be real. Prophecy, especially creepy internet prophecy, only works if it keeps hitting the mark. And this is where these things usually fall apart, right? Under scrutiny.
Absolutely. And the number station myth definitely started to wobble, hilariously and maybe a bit tragically, when specific future dates came up that the community got really hyped about.
Okay, let's hear the big misses.
The source material highlights two major ones that really took the air out of the collective dread balloon. First, there was a prediction about the Queen of England. The message supposedly read, "The Queen has died today. The world mourns as on days like these we are all Brits." And it came with a specific timestamp, 4:02 a.m. on March 19th, 2014.
Ah, yes, I vaguely remember the internet holding its breath for that one.
And
March 19th, 2014 came and went, and Queen Elizabeth II was indeed still very much alive and kicking.
Precisely. A massive public swing and a miss for the prophecy. The myth definitely suffered a major credibility hit that day. People were like, oh, well, that's lame.
Did it kill the myth entirely?
Not entirely, which is interesting. The source notes that the genuine horror lessened significantly for many. It shifted from, OMG, this game predicts the future, to, that's a weird, inaccurate coincidence. But you could still see the cognitive dissonance online. Some fans were disappointed, saying the failure lessened the horror, while others were still posting things like, I kind of just want the world to end on one of these dates so it proves the game is real.
Wow. That failure really highlights the desperate need for some people to believe in the myth, doesn't it?
It really does. And the second big miss is just pure comedy gold. It's so specific,
Yeah.
so bizarrely mundane, it almost feels like satire.
Oh, I know this one. The Britney prediction.
The one and only, the message. I can't believe Britney's actually won an Oscar. Timestamp, 9:33 p.m., February 27, 2023.
Which was the date of the 95th Academy Awards.
Correct. And needless to say, when that date passed and no one named Britney Spears or otherwise won an Oscar, well, the message just became laughable.
Right.
The source material points out how this kind of trivial pod culture prediction really killed the atmosphere for a lot of fans. It turned the potential for genuine, chilling meta horror into something silly like, yeah, right, and next it'll predict Elvis is found alive working at a Burger King.
It just punctures the dread because it forces mundane reality back into the fantasy.
A prediction about the universe unraveling. Terrifying. A prediction about Britney Spears' unexpected career change. Just sounds like bad fan fiction. Exactly. But the myth does have one final, truly sinister message reported in the sources. And this one is different. It apparently was not preceded by a number string. No date, no time, just the message itself. Suggesting maybe it's the final broadcast, the ultimate warning. Something that transcends specific dates.
Okay, the universe unraveling one. Hit us with the full text again. Lay it on me.
It's chilling because it shifts focus entirely away from like politics or celebrity deaths or oil spills and goes full cosmic horror. It reads, I can't believe they've actually done it. Not long left. They were warned, but they just had to keep pushing the boundaries of science. The noise, I can't take the noise anymore, and the light, dear God. The universe is slowly unraveling around us. I have a pistol in the attic.
Oof. Okay, that hits differently. It taps right into very real, very modern anxieties, doesn't it? Not just the Cold War fear of nuclear bombs, which Fallout is built on, but the 21st century fear of scientific hubris. Particle colliders, AI, genetic engineering. The idea that our relentless curiosity might be literally tearing reality apart.
It's pure cosmic horror blended with that techno-thriller dread. What happens when science goes too far? And the mention of the noise and the light. It's visceral, sensory horror. And ending with, I have a pistol in the attic, implies utter despair and a final desperate solution.
And is there a final date mentioned anywhere in all these supposed messages, like a doomsday clock endpoint?
The latest specific date cited in any of the messages, according to the creepypasta sources, is 1:27 a.m. on July 6, 2027.
2027. Okay, still in our future. How did fans interpret that?
Well, obviously, people connected to the Fallout lore's Great War of 2077, when the bombs actually dropped. But 2027 is 50 years earlier. So the speculation was wild. Maybe it's predicting the event that leads to the Great War, or maybe it's something else entirely. A different kind collapse, a precursor event. Or maybe the moment reality itself finally gives way, before the nukes even fly, the unraveling mentioned in the final message.
Unknowable, which makes it scarier. And of course, no perfect conspiracy theory is complete without the final piece of the puzzle, the cover-up.
Ah, yes, the information firewall. This is crucial to why the myth persisted. The meta horror of the story actually includes its own built-in censorship narrative.
What's the story there?
The belief, the legend spread online, was that as the community on the official Fallout wiki started compiling all these findings, the number strings, the Morse translations, the date correlations, the YouTube message, the wiki moderators supposedly freaked out.
Freaked out how?
The story goes, they banned everyone involved in the discussion, deleted the entire page dedicated to the number station, scrubbed all references to it, and even installed filtering software to prevent the topic from ever being brought up again.
Whoa. So the story itself claims that the official fan channels actively suppress the truth about the number station.
Exactly, which, from a conspiracy theorist perspective, is the ultimate validation. They wouldn't be trying so hard to hide this if it wasn't real. It creates this perfect self-sustaining feedback loop. The alleged cover-up becomes proof of the conspiracy. It makes the pursuit of this dark knowledge feel dangerous, forbidden.
Pure, beautiful, uncut psychic damage, built entirely on the digital ghost of a dead radio host and some alleged wiki edits. Incredible.
It really does tap into that core instability already present in Fallout lore. You know, all the retcons, the hidden vault experiments, the government secrets. It takes that existing foundation of doubt and twists it into this active, ongoing suppression narrative. The horror becomes the act of trying to uncover a truth that they don't want you to know.
Man, that number station story is genuinely fucked up. A classic internet horror legend. But speaking of manufacturing your own dread, if the game's official lore, or even these weird maybe glitches, maybe hoaxes like the radio station, don't deliver enough genuine shit-your-pants horror.
Then the modding community will absolutely step the fuck in and dial that shit up to 11. Guaranteed.
Right. This is where the players themselves basically say, okay, Bethesda, your quirky post-apocalypse is cute, but we want to be terrified.
Exactly. This is where you see players actively rejecting the dark comedy, rejecting the RPG power fantasy elements, especially in Fallout 4. They are fundamentally genre-flipping the game, taking it from an exploration RPG with some spooky bits and turning it into an outright, dedicated, relentless survival horror experience. The goal is pure, terrifying immersion.
And step one for that seems to be making the Commonwealth look and feel absolutely miserable. You gotta kill the colorful, almost cheerful post-apocalyptic vibe first.
Totally.
Yeah.
You have to establish atmosphere. The primary goal for a lot of these horror overhaul mods is achieving what gets called the Silent Hill aesthetic.
Okay, explain that. Fog, rust, pyramid head.
Less pyramid head, more fog and rust and oppressive gloom. Mods like Bleak or Polluted Climate are huge for this. They aren't just like simple texture replacers. They fundamentally overhaul the game's lighting, the weather systems,
To do what?
to make it look like a perpetual nuclear winter. Everything becomes washed out, desaturated, faded. You get constant thick fog, maybe radioactive rain or dust storms, aggressively overcast skies, pretty much all the time.
So you lose the bright sunny days, the like beautiful desolation moments.
On it. You were left with this constant oppressive gray or sickly green haze. And that is critical for horror, right? Limited visibility. You often can't see more than 10 or 15 feet in front of you, which creates the perfect stage for those Silent Hill-style horrors, ghouls, mutants, whatever, to just suddenly emerge from the mist right in your face. The environment itself becomes an antagonist, actively working against your senses.
Okay, so visually it's grim as hell. What about sound? Because Fallout sound design is usually pretty distinctive, kind of hopeful, even with the sad songs.
Yeah, the modders come for the sound too. You got to create an auditory nightmare to match the visual one. And this is where mods get really clever, because they mess with your learned audio cues, your conditioning as a player.
What do you mean? Like, we're used to certain sounds meaning safety or progress?
Precisely. Think about the little jingle when you level up, the clicky UI noises in your Pip-Boy, the default main menu music. They're familiar, often satisfying sounds. Mods like schizophrenia or sinister ambient sound rip all that out.
And replace it with what?
They replace it with genuinely unnerving, anxiety-inducing soundscapes. Low, whispering voices that seem to come from nowhere. Strange, indistinct scraping or clicking noises. Sudden, discordant musical stings when you enter certain areas. Creepy ambient tracks instead of the standard exploration music.
Oh man, that sounds like psychological hell, because you'd constantly be second-guessing every sound, right? Was that scrape just the mod's ambient noise?
Yeah.
Or is that a feral ghoul right behind me?
That's exactly the point. It weaponizes your own paranoia. It forces you into this constant state of hypervigilance and suspicion because you can no longer trust the game's audio feedback loop. Was that whisper part of the mod, or am I going insane? Did I hear footsteps or just static? The whole experience becomes incredibly tense just walking from A to B.
Okay, visual overhaul, psychological sound torture. What about the last bastion of comfort, the actual in-game radio stations? Gotta kill the happy 1940s tunes too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Diamond City Radio. Gotta go. Those upbeat, nostalgic songs are designed to be this little bubble of warmth and safety in the bleak wasteland. Mods like Existence 2.0 specifically replace that.
What does Existence 2.0 do?
It's a fan-made radio station mod, but instead of playing cheerful vintage pop, it plays creepy, unsettling ambient music, dark, atmospheric soundscapes, sometimes just drones or distorted noise. So now, even tuning into the radio for comfort offers none. It just adds another layer of dread to your exploration. The simple act of traveling becomes fraught because there's no escape, no cheerful distraction to anchor you.
Okay, atmosphere, oppressive. Music, gone or scary, ambient noise, driving you clinically insane. Now let's talk gameplay. How do you actually make the threat scarier? Turn the Commonwealth into a real meat grinder.
You combine all that atmospheric dread with mods that seriously overhaul the enemies, make them nastier, more numerous, more terrifying to look at.
Oh.
Well, for the human element, you've got mods like Nightmare Raiders. This adds something like 16 new, unique, and deeply unsettling raider types and armor sets. They don't just look tougher, they look disturbed, deranged, like soldiers who've truly snapped, covered in gore and weird trophies. It ramps up the feeling of anarchy and makes encountering other humans way more unnerving.
And the ghouls. Because ghouls are already kind of jump scare machines. How do you make them worse?
Oh, you turn the Commonwealth into a full-on zombie apocalypse simulator. The big one here is the Feral Ghouls Expansion Pack, or FGEP. This adds a ton of visual variety to the ghouls, makes them look more decayed, more mutated, genuinely horrific. But the real terror comes when you combine that with mods that drastically increase spawn rates or add massive ghoul hordes.
So instead of fighting 1 or 2, you're facing like 20.
30, easily. Suddenly it's not about carefully picking off enemies. It's about pure attrition warfare. Constant panic, resource management, trying not to get swarmed. The horror shifts from individual monster encounters to this overwhelming, relentless tide of death. It forces a totally different, much more desperate playstyle.
But okay, even with hordes of nightmare ghouls and creepy raiders in the fog, Fallout 4 especially gives you a pretty powerful safety net, a tension breaker, VATS, the Vault-Tec Assisted Targeting System.
The big one pauses time, lets you target specific body parts, gives you percentage chances to hit.
Yeah.
It's a core mechanic, but it fundamentally breaks the flow of real-time horror.
Right, you can just pause, assess, queue up headshots, and watch the cinematic kills. It diffuses the panic.
Exactly. So for a true survival horror experience, that safety net has to be shredded. Mods like No VATS Overhaul do exactly what they say on the tin.
Well.
They remove the VATS mechanic entirely. Gone.
Whoa, completely.
Completely. No pausing, no slow-mo, no targeting system. You are forced into pure, real-time, often chaotic and terrifying combat. Especially when you combine No VATS with mods that make the nights genuinely dark.
Ah, right. Mods like True Nights. How dark are we talking? Like, can't see your hand in front of your face dark?
Pretty much. We're talking oppressive, almost absolute darkness outside of light sources, where the tiny glow from your Pip-Boy feels less like a helpful tool and more like a giant eat me sign, spotlighting you for every ghoul, every deathclaw in a 100-yard radius.
Jesus. So, combine No VATS with True Nights and the ghoul hordes.
And suddenly, every encounter is potentially lethal panic. You're relying purely on twitch reflexes, maybe a flashlight beam sweeping wildly, hearing things scurrying just outside the light. You will jump, you'll panic fire, you'll feel genuine fear because the game's built-in systems for managing combat stress are just gone. That's how you force legitimate jump scares and raw dread out of a game often known for its slightly goofy, consequence-free combat.
That is a masterclass in transforming a quirky RPG into a goddamn psychological stress test. But some players, some groups, they take manufacturing dread even further, right? Beyond just installing mods. They create these whole new hidden realities using the game engine. These unofficial alternate reality games, ARGs, taking the horror outside the game's intended map even.
Yeah, the ARG scene, especially the fan-made ones, gets really interesting. An ARG, just to clarify, is an alternate reality game. It uses the real world, or in this case the game world, in unexpected ways, as a platform for a story or a puzzle.
And you mentioned one specific Fallout ARG from the source material, the Job Zero one.
Right, the Drive Zero AG, which used Fallout, New Vegas as its playground. This is a fascinating example of players actively seeking out horror in the game's voids. It apparently started with the player needing to glitch to clip out of the normal intended map boundaries of the Mojave Wasteland.
Venturing into the back rooms, basically. The digital void.
Exactly. We need to define what those back rooms are in game terms. They're the unused, unfinished, out-of-bounds areas of the game world. Usually it's just this vast, empty, often repeating landscape made of low-resolution textures, maybe some basic geometric shapes. It's the digital equivalent of being backstage, the place the developers never ever intended for you to see. It's not supposed to exist for the player.
And in this Derblarsh ARG, the player explores this emptiness, this digital void in New Vegas, until they find what?
They explore this vast, empty, broken landscape until they stumble upon something deliberately placed, an abandoned campfire. And near it, picking up an item, like a lunchbox, triggers a cryptic, unmarked quest. The documentation of this ARG, the videos and posts, apparently feature huge stretches of just walking. Unedited walking through this empty void between scattered, deeply unsettling little points of interest or cryptic clues.
That sounds exhausting, but also kind of creepy in itself. Just the endless walking in nothingness.
It is. It documents this almost senseless, obsessive search for meaning in a place that fundamentally lacks it.
So what's the specific genre of horror this ARG taps into? Because it doesn't sound like jump scares or monsters necessarily. It sounds more psychological, like a descent into...
Emptiness.
You nailed it. It is the purest form of what's called liminal space horror. Liminality is that feeling of being in a transitional space, an abandoned space, an in-between place, like an empty airport late at night, or a deserted school hallway, or an unfinished part of a video game map.
Okay.
The desert landscape itself, the backrooms of New Vegas, it's familiar. It looks like the Mojave, but it's stripped bare, unnaturally empty, geometrically wrong, profoundly off-kilter. And it becomes threatening because it lacks the expected content, the expected boundaries. It's that unsettling feeling of being somewhere you're not supposed to be, a hallway that stretches on forever, simultaneously everywhere and nowhere.
So the horror is the vast, silent, uncanny valley landscape of the digital frontier itself. The place the player was explicitly not meant to go. Precisely. The act of traversing these forbidden spaces, spaces the game tries to keep you out of, becomes the horror story. It creates this documented narrative of descent into a hidden, maybe broken, maybe hellish world that resides just beyond the game's normal simulation.
And the fan dedication to this stuff is insane, right? People trying to replicate it.
Oh, absolutely. The source material mentions users spending hours, literally hours, meticulously retracing the steps shown in the ARG documentation down to the exact number of steps taken, the precise compass bearings used while walking through the void, trying to confirm if these hidden locations were somehow part of the base game, some undiscovered Easter egg.
They were trying to prove that the boundary between the game and this fan-made nightmare was actually real, that thin. They wanted this terrifying secret hidden in the code to be true.
It shows this intense psychological investment, doesn't it? The horror isn't just created by the ARG author, it's amplified by the community's collective effort to validate it, their shared terror, and their deep-seated willingness to believe that the game's map holds secrets even the developers might not know about. Or secrets the developers deliberately hid and hoped no one would find. #outro.
Wow. Okay, so we've gone from a potentially glitched, potentially mythical dead radio host predicting celebrity deaths and the universe unraveling, all the way to players actively breaking the game's reality, stripping away every comfort, just to feel true dread in an empty, low-res digital desert.
The central tension we've explored today is pretty clear, isn't it? Fallout gives you the atomic wasteland, the mutated monsters, the dark humor, but it seems like the players themselves often have to provide the deeper psychic damage, the existential dread, the cosmic horror.
Yeah, the ultimate takeaway, for me at least, is that the Fallout universe is maybe so inherently terrifying, not just because of the death claws or the super mutants, but because its own internal history, its lore, is fundamentally unstable.
That's a great point.
You know, with all the retcons, like where the drug jet actually came from, the ambiguous endings, the layers upon layers of government conspiracy and hidden vault experiments, that very instability provides the perfect fertile ground for myths like the Numbers Station to not just appear, but to actually gain traction and feel plausible within the world.
It creates cracks for the horror to seep in.
Exactly. The true horror often isn't the monster you can see and shoot, but the lingering, nagging idea that the world of the game itself knows something you don't. Maybe a secret about its own broken reality, or worse, a secret about ours.
That pervasive sense of a world just slightly out of calibration, a reality that might be thinner than you think.
Yeah. That's the specific flavor of horror we've really dissected today, I think. Both the imagined and the deliberately crafted.
Totally agree. And look, if you think this manufactured mayhem and these digital ghosts are bad, just wait until we talk about the horrors the developers did intentionally bake into the code.
Oh yeah, part 2 is gonna get grim. Join us next time for part 2, where we dive deep into the established, canonical, genuinely fucked up in-game horror. We're talking the truly soul-crushing ethical nightmare of Vault 11 and the sanity-shredding Lovecraftian depths of places like the Dunwich Borers.
Yeah, strap in for that one. But for tonight, as you drift off to sleep, maybe consider this. You've seen just how easily prophecy can be manufactured online, how readily horror can be modded into existence when players feel a game isn't scary enough. If you strip away all the twists, all the jokes, all the colorful characters and retro tunes from Fallout, what are you left with?
Just emptiness.
Just the empty, irradiated, silent vastness of the digital wasteland. So the question is, what is it about that fundamental emptiness that makes us, the players, so desperate to fill it? Why do we crave finding terrifying, reality-bending secrets hidden within it? What does that impulse, that need to populate the silence with monsters and conspiracies, maybe say about the silence in our own reality, and our own need to believe there's something hiding just beyond the boundaries of what we can see or understand?
Damn. Deep thoughts for Dark Night. Happy Halloween, you beautiful ghouls and wasteland wanderers. And seriously, try not to listen too closely to any strange broadcast tonight. We'll see you in the next deep dive.
Okay, it is Halloween night. You know what that means. We are definitely not doing some cozy, warm blanket kind of dive today. Nope. We are strapping on the biggest, baddest power armor we can find, turning that Pip-Boy light O off F, because let's be honest, it thinks it's a monster magnet. And we are continuing our lovely, terrifying little hike through the deepest, darkest, nastiest corners of the Fallout universe. This is part 2 of our horror series. And I gotta say, I think this might be the most unnerving bit. Because we're moving past the standard enemies, the death claws, the super mutants, the stuff the developers meant for us to fight.
That's exactly right. Yeah, we're shifting gears here. We've tackled the sort of expected threats, the things designed to be challenging encounters now. Now we're digging into the stuff that's meant to mess with your head, the intentional psychological horror. We're basically dissecting 2 big creepy categories today. First, you've got the digital folklore, the creepypastas, right?
Yeah.
These elaborate fan-made nightmares that start getting really weird, blurring the lines between what's in the game and, well, our reality.
Oh, the stuff that makes you wonder if your game is haunted.
Exactly. And then second, we're looking at the custom-built hellscapes. We're diving into the horror mods, the stuff the community built, specifically designed to turn places like the Commonwealth and Fallout 4 into these like pure, unadulterated psychological torture chambers. It's pretty wild.
It really is an exploration of how the Fallout setting itself, with all that baked-in Cold War paranoia, the existential dread, how it's just the perfect canvas for this kind of thing, for players to build their own terror, for these digital urban legends to just sprout up. And our sources for this one, they're all over the place. We've got analyses of these famous gaming myths, these really specific like shopping lists for horror mods for Fallout 4, and just some intense community discussions, people really digging into what parts of the actual game lore hit those deep psychological fear notes.
Yeah, the core takeaway, I think, is, look, the developers gave us this nuked out world, right? Total apocalypse. Fine. But the players, they took that ruined canvas and they figured out precisely how to make it personally maddening, like truly upsetting. They found the game's weak spots, the glitches, the ambient creepy sounds, the bits of lore nobody really looked at too closely, and they just cranked the volume to 11. Maximum horror.
Okay, let's unpack this beast. And we got to start with, like, the undisputed king. The most famous piece of digital folklore to ever crawl out of the Capital Wasteland, the Fallout 3 number station.
Right, this one, it's structured almost like a dark ritual, a digital ritual. You supposedly have to do these 3 very specific kind of weird things in the game, things you wouldn't normally do. Some are just straight up evil choices, actually, and doing them unlocks this thing, this broadcast that just shouldn't exist. So walk us through it. How do you supposedly trigger this digital doom signal?
All right, so we're treating the creepypasta like it's fact here, just for the analysis. Okay, step 1. Total chaos on the airwaves. You have to kill 3 dogs. Mr. Galaxy News Radio himself, the charismatic guy. The source material is pretty clear. The station needs to be destabilized. And when he dies, he gets replaced by Margaret. She's the technician. Super uncharismatic. And the key thing, apparently, is that she never shows up in person in the game. You can't find her.
Yeah.
And the sources say she cannot be killed.
Right, so she's this permanent fixture of misery on the radio.
Exactly. This like persistent, monotone, unkillable voice just droning on, which is the complete opposite of 3 Dogs' whole, fight the good fight energy.
That shift alone is pretty creepy. You go from this like enthusiastic DJ guiding you through the apocalypse to just this dull, depressed drone reading PSAs. Okay,
Yeah.
that's step 1. Atmosphere change. What's the next step? The one that weakens the game's normal structure.
Step 2 is all about the signal, the GNR signal strength. You absolutely must skip the quest Galaxy News Radio. That's the one where you normally go fix the antenna on the Washington Monument and boost the signal across the whole wasteland. You can apparently do this by passing a really high-speed check with 3 Dog, before you kill him, obviously. Or you can just look up where to go next for the main quest online. Use the Fallout Wiki or whatever. Just bypass the whole signal boosting part. Because if the signal isn't boosted, the broadcast range stays tiny. Really small. And that supposedly allows this other faint hidden number station signal to maybe overpower the normal GNR feed, but only in very specific spots.
Interesting. So the idea is you're actively sabotaging the normal communication network of the Capital Wasteland. You're making it weaker. So, dead DJ, weak signal. What's the big finale? The trigger that supposedly flips the switch from GNR to this number station.
The final trigger, the one everyone agrees on, is you definitely have to destroy Raven Rock. The Enclave base, that big climactic moment in the main quest. The idea, the theory, is that this massive military collapse, this huge explosion and structural failure, it creates some kind of shockwave, maybe psychic, maybe physical, who knows? But that shockwave activates the hidden broadcast. The moment Raven Rock goes boom, you should apparently see the message "radio signal lost" pop up. Followed, just moments later, by "radio signal found." And that signal is supposed to be the number station.
Right. And what makes this whole thing so damn persistent, what gives the creepypasta legs, is that even people who follow all these steps meticulously, most of them still just hear Margaret droning on, and the community, the believers, they use that failure rate to argue, oh, there must be other secret requirements, we just haven't found them yet. Maybe it's your karma level, maybe it's the specific in-game time of day, maybe you had to visit certain locations in a certain order. It's maddening.
Yeah, it turns the whole thing into this, like, endless digital goose chase.
Yeah.
A rabbit hole you can never quite get to the bottom of.
It really does. It becomes this quest for something that might not even be there.
The ultimate dark digital pilgrimage. Right. And, okay, so we did all that. We killed Three Dog, skipped the quest, blew up Raven Rock. But because we didn't boost the signal, the range is tiny. Where exactly do you have to go to even have a chance of hearing Three Dog's ghost on the airwaves?
You need to get high. Elevation is key. Since the signal's weak, this supposed secret broadcast can only be heard reliably right there in the DC area and only way up high. The sources list specific spots, usually lonely, isolated places like the very top of the Point Lookout Ferris wheel way out in the swamp, or the roof of Tenpenny Tower, some of the highest SATCOM arrays, those big satellite dishes scattered around, especially in the northwest part of the map, or even just high mountain peaks near where Raven Rock used to be. It forces you onto these high exposed perches. It feels like climbing some kind of dark digital altar, doesn't it? You have to be alone, way up high, totally exposed, just to maybe hear this thing.
Okay, so picture this. You're perched way the hell up on some rusty satellite dish, wind howling, maybe some ghouls scratching around below.
Yeah.
You tune your Pip-Boy radio. What do you actually hear? What's the content of this spooky broadcast?
Well, the first thing that supposedly hits you is the voice. It's definitely Three Dog's voice actor, Eric Dellums. Everyone agrees on that. But, and this is crucial, the sources insist he's not in character. Not at all. He sounds monotone, defeated, almost depressed, and he's just reading off this long string of numbers, always single digits, like 9, 3, 7, 9, usually 9 to 12 digits long. And they stress this weird detail. He never says multi-digit numbers like 11 or 22. It's always 1, 1 or 2, 2. Super clinical, robotic almost.
Man, just hearing that voice, usually so full of energy, sound completely dead and emotionless, that alone is creepy as hell. And what comes after the numbers is just silence.
There's a pause after the numbers, yeah.
Yeah.
Then comes Morse code. And the length of the Morse code message apparently varies wildly. It's never consistent, which makes trying to decode it even harder, adding to the whole mystery. Then, right after the Morse code stops, instantly, the song I Don't Want to Set the World on Fire by the Ink Spots starts playing, and that's the only song. Just loops.
Wow, that song specifically. The irony is thick enough to choke on.
Right, the quintessential Fallout theme. This song about not wanting to start the fire, playing over a mysterious broadcast that feels like it's counting down to something awful, maybe the next fire.
We should probably zoom out for a sec, though, because real-life number stations, they're already pretty damn creepy on their own, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. They're genuinely unsettling. For anyone listening who doesn't know, a real numbers station is basically a shortwave radio station. It broadcasts these cryptic messages, usually strings of numbers or letters, often read by automated voices. The common theory among intelligence folks is that they're used for one-way communication with spies in deep cover, like sending coded instructions. Some even hypothesize they could be part of a nuclear retaliation control network, a dead man's switch for launching nukes. Given Fallout's whole vibe, the intense Cold War paranoia, the obsession with nuclear war, this myth just slots in perfectly, terrifyingly well. It suggests even the GNR Tower itself is haunted by the ghosts of Cold War spycraft.
Okay, let's get to the juicy bit, the core of the legend, the prophecies. This is where the game world supposedly bleeds right into our world. How did people even start cracking this, if it's just numbers and Morse code beeps?
The Morse code was the first breakthrough. People started translating it, and at first, the messages were weirdly mundane, almost comical, some of them. Things like, wash the car today, maybe Chinese for dinner, stuff like that. Or the really infamous one, the totally meta one. Have you watched my YouTube video yet? I uploaded myself kicking bums in the nuts.
Wait, YouTube, in the Fallout universe? That makes absolutely no sense. That's the tell, right?
Exactly. That YouTube line is like the big glitch in the Matrix. It immediately gave the whole creepypasta this chilling credibility because it suggested the messages weren't coming from the game's reality. They had to be coming from our world. Or maybe slipping between dimensions, who knows? Then, some player, supposedly on an old forum for the Fallout wiki, noticed something huge. They realized the string of numbers before the Morse code. It matched up perfectly with the time and date, using military format. Hours, minutes, day, month, year. That discovery just blew the doors wide open. Suddenly, people could connect these messages to real-world events, past, present, and future.
Okay, give us the examples, the ones that really freak people out, the ones that made everyone go, hang on, this is actually getting weird.
The biggest one, the one everyone points to, was the message. 12055282010, followed by the Morse code for, what are you talking about? You'll be missed. That number string. It's 12.05 on May 28th, 2010, the exact time and date that actor Gary Coleman died.
Whoa,
Well,
okay,
I
that's
think-
specific.
Right. And then there was another really chilling one, supposedly broadcast years before the event actually happened. It talked about the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. The numbers were 945420210, April 20th, 2010, 9.45 a.m. And the Morse code said, accident in the Gulf, several dead. Oil spill apparently averted. Which, perfectly captured that initial, tragically wrong assessment of the disaster. The fact that the message got the initial report right, but the ultimate outcome horribly wrong. It adds this layer of just heartbreaking factual irony to the whole myth.
Man, the idea that this game, Fallout 3, released way back in 2008, somehow had coded messages about real-world tragedies that hadn't even happened yet,
Yeah.
that's pure nightmare fuel. It screws with your head. But it wasn't just predicting the future, right? The pasta claims it was messing with the past, too, rewriting history.
Yeah, the historical revisionism is just as unsettling in a way. There's this one message about Lincoln's assassination. The numbers match up. 22.15, April 15th, 1865. That's 10.15 p.m., the night Lincoln was shot. And the Morse code says, he's dead and blame will probably be placed on that actor booth. Johnson better not cheat me out of the payment. Which implies that Andrew Johnson, the vice president at the time, actually framed John Wilkes Booth, maybe even had him killed to secure his own path to the presidency. So the pasta doesn't just predict the future. It casts doubt on our established history. It makes you question the reality presented in textbooks, all within the context of this game myth. It erodes everything.
But, okay, for a myth like this to survive, it can't be perfect, right? It needs some ambiguity, some failures. What about the prophecies that just didn't happen? Or the ones that were just confusing?
Oh yeah, there were definitely misses. The two biggest ones people talk about are, one, a prediction that Queen Elizabeth II would die on March 19th, 2014, and two, a message dated February 27th, 2023 that said, I can't believe Britney's actually won an Oscar. So when March 2014 came and went and the Queen was still very much alive, yeah, that definitely took some of the immediate creep factor away for a lot of people. And the Britney Oscar one, that just caused endless arguments. Was it Britney Spears? Was it some other Britney in the film industry nobody knew about? But here's the thing, the myth is resilient. When a prediction fails, the believers immediately start trying to rationalize it. Oh, maybe the timeline shifted, or maybe it meant something else. It shows how powerful the narrative itself became. People wanted to believe.
But the absolute peak of the paranoia fuel, the message that really taps into deep existential dread, that's the one with not any numbers, right? The one that seems disconnected from time altogether.
That's the one, the ultimate kicker. The universe is slowly unraveling around us. I have a pistol in the attic. It's the only message supposedly not preceded by that string of numbers, that date-time code, which gives it this feeling of, immediate, universal, timeless dread. And fans, naturally, immediately started connecting this to some heavy, high-concept scientific anxieties, specifically theories about particle colliders, like the Large Hadron Collider, the LHC.
Right, the LHC. Why that specifically? What's the connection people made?
Well, there's this fringe, often sensationalized fear about these incredibly powerful colliders. The idea is that by smashing particles together at near light speed, they could accidentally create something unstable, exotic matter like strangelets, or maybe even microscopic black holes that could theoretically start eating reality from the inside out. Or just fundamentally change the laws of physics. So that line, the universe is slowly unraveling around us, gets interpreted as a direct reference to that very specific 21st century fear. Science accidentally breaking reality. It neatly ties the nuclear paranoia of the Fallout world to the scientific existential paranoia of our world. And it gives the speaker in the message this terrifyingly rational reason to just want out before the cosmic unraveling gets worse, hence the pistol in the attic.
Jesus, and then to top it all off, to give this whole thing that final layer of forbidden knowledge paranoia,
Right.
There's the alleged cover-up.
Exactly. That's what seals the deal for a lot of people. The myth claims that as the community got deeper into decoding these messages, compiling lists, discussing theories, the moderators on the Fallout Wiki and related forums just started bringing the hammer down, summarily banning users involved in the discussion, deleting all references to the numbers station, even supposedly deploying filtering software to prevent the topic from reappearing. Now, was this just overzealous mods enforcing rules? Or was it part of the meta-narrative, maybe even orchestrated by the original creator of the creepypasta? Who knows? But the effect is the same. It makes the story feel dangerous, like the game itself or some entity within it is actively trying to suppress this information to stop you from knowing the truth.
And they even gave us a final date to fixate on, a potential endpoint.
Yep. The latest date ever supposedly predicted by the station is 1:27 a.m. on July 6, 2027. And fans, of course, immediately made the connection, July 2027. That lines up disturbingly close to the lore dates surrounding the Great War in the Fallout universe, the war that started it all. It creates this perfect, terrifying loop. A message supposedly from the game's past, predicting a date that seems to reference the game's ultimate catastrophic future. It's just chef's kiss perfect creepypasta construction.
Okay, so the number station's the big one, the legend about predicting the future. But the community didn't stop there, right? Others started focusing on blurring the lines of the game map itself, creating these ARG-like experiences. Moving beyond the number station, what other fan-made horrors managed to really mess with that boundary between game and reality?
Well, there's a persistent rumor, more of a whisper really, about something called Lone Wolf Radio in Fallout, New Vegas. It centers on this totally unremarkable trailer just south of Good Springs where you start the game. Normally it just has a copy of the Wasteland Survival Guide inside, nothing special. But the rumor, the creepypasta, was that this trailer was meant to be the start of a really dark, hidden quest. The supposed trigger was listening to a specific, unnamed radio broadcast late at night, and on that broadcast you'd allegedly hear a man brutally murdering a child, just the audio.
Oh God, just raw audio of a murder triggering a quest. That's grim.
Extremely grim. Hearing that horrific audio is supposed to activate a quest marker, sending you off to find this killer. And some darker versions of the myth even suggested you might have the option to join him, become his accomplice. Now, obviously, the base game doesn't let you kill children, Bethesda and Obsidian draw a line there, but the idea that maybe, just maybe, the audio files for something that horrific existed somewhere deep in the game's code, maybe cut content that gave the rumor this really dark, powerful mystique. It played on the known limits of the game engine versus the imagined horror.
Right. But then there was something much more elaborate, wasn't there? Something that felt less like a rumor and more like a deliberate, confusing descent into madness. The Durbio Show ARG.
Yes. The Doobie Zirish ARG, also centered on New Vegas. That was a masterclass in using liminal space, the stuff outside the map boundaries. It revolved around glitching, clipping outside a playable area, usually using a known bug at the Mojave Outpost. And the core of the AOG was video content shared online, showing someone walking for hours through this vast, empty, untextured desert void. Space the developers never intended you to see.
So the horror isn't jump scares, it's just emptiness. Existential dread in the digital void. What did the player supposedly find out there?
They found anomalies. Strange things in the emptiness. Hidden campfires where there should be nothing. Cryptic quest objectives delivered via a rusty old lunchbox just sitting there in the void. And genuinely unsettling audio and visual glitches. Distorted sounds, weird graphical effects that felt alien and wrong. The real psychological terror, though, came from the confusion. People watching the stuff had no idea what it was. Was it a secret developer testing area? Was it cut content that was somehow still rendering? Was it an incredibly elaborate mod? Players tried to replicate it, meticulously following the steps shown in the videos, glitching out of the map in the exact same way, only to find nothing. Just the empty void. And that is the hallmark of a really well-executed, fan-made alternate reality game. It uses the game's own liminal boundaries, the places you're not supposed to go, to make you fundamentally question the reality of the game world itself. It felt less like playing a game and more like stumbling into the corrupted memory banks of the computer. A descent into digital madness.
All right, so if creepypastas are the spooky folklore passed around the digital campfire, then the modding community. They're like the architects of customized nightmares. They build the haunted houses themselves. We're shifting focus now mainly to Fallout 4, which, let's be fair, a lot of people find less naturally creepy or atmospheric than Fallout 3 or New Vegas. It's a bit brighter, maybe. But oh boy, did players figure out how to inject maximum dread into the Commonwealth? They basically decided to just delete the sunlight. And all comfort.
That's pretty much the goal, yeah.
Hmm.
The Fallout 4 horror modding scene is largely about stripping away that sense of adventure, that feeling of being a powerful hero, and replacing it with relentless, grinding survival horror. And it absolutely starts with completely overhauling the environment, making the world itself feel hostile and oppressive.
So say goodbye to those relatively cheerful, irradiated, sunny days in the Commonwealth. What are the big visual mods people use to turn the environment into this place of just constant, oppressive dread?
Well, you've got cornerstone mods like Bleak or Polluted Climate. Bleak specifically aims to turn the Commonwealth into this perpetual nuclear winter. Everything looks faded, washed out, cold. It's always raining or snowing, giving you this constant feeling of exposure and misery. Polluted Climate goes for a different vibe, more like a dense, smog-choked, desolate wasteland. Think Blade Runner meets nuclear fallout. But the key effect for both, really, is fog. Thick, soupy fog that cuts your visibility down to just a few feet. Which, of course, is perfect for survival horror. Horrors can just loom out of the mist at any moment.
Right. And the nights. Base game Fallout 4 nights. Honestly, they're pretty easy to navigate. A little dark, maybe, but
Yeah.
you can usually see what you're shooting at. It's like the exact opposite of horror game design.
Totally. And that's where True Nights comes in, or mods like it. The description often says it makes the darkness way more dark and creepy, and that's putting it mildly. It basically just obliterates nighttime visibility. You are forced to rely entirely on your Pip-Boy light, or maybe a crappy little flashlight mod, or the headlamp on your power armor, which of course just makes you a bigger target. Every single nighttime encounter becomes absolutely petrifying, because you often can't see the enemy until they're right on top of you. You can't gauge numbers, you can't see where they're coming from, pure panic. And then building on that visual dread, layering on top of mods like Polluted Climate, you get things like senescence.
You mentioned senescence as an ENB preset. Maybe we should quickly break down what ENB means for listeners who aren't deep into the modding scene.
Oh, sure, yeah, good point. So ENB stands for Enhanced Natural Bloom, which is kind of a weird name now because it does way more than bloom. It's basically this powerful graphics tool, post-processor, that lets modders inject all sorts of advanced visual effects after the game has already rendered the scene. Things like custom lighting, really detailed shadows, depth of field effects, custom color filters. It can drastically change the look and feel of the game. So, senescence is a preset configuration for that ENB tool. It applies this really specific, sinister visual overhaul. It often works with Polluted Climate, cranking down the color saturation, making everything look washed out, diseased, almost sickly. It emphasizes that bleak, oppressive atmosphere.
Gotcha. So it's not just changing textures. It's like applying a custom Instagram filter from hell over the entire game world,
Yeah.
designed specifically to make you feel unsettled.
Yeah.
And then there's that simple but really effective one you mentioned. What
Yeah.
hell? That's like the perfect opening statement for a horror playthrough.
It really is. It's such a small change, but it sets the tone instantly. All it does is replace the normal Fallout 4 main menu screen, the one with the power armor in the garage. It replaces it with this image of a hellish, dark landscape. All ruins, bathed in this eerie, pulsing red light. So before you even load your save file, the game is telling you, yeah, this isn't going to be fun. This is going to be hell.
It's a perfect mood setter.
Okay, atmosphere. Check. Oppressive visuals, terrifying darkness. Now we move into the really nasty stuff. The sensory and psychological mods. The ones that stop just messing with what you see and start messing directly with your brain, your perception of reality.
Yeah, these are the mods that, for me, really elevate the experience from just difficult to actual psychological horror. They aim to break your sense of security and trust in your own perception. Mods like schizophrenia or sinister ambient sound, these completely overhaul the game's audio. They replace music, sure, but also lots of subtle sounds. The ATS noises, the little jingle when you gain XP, ambient environmental sounds, they replace them with things designed to induce dread. But the core effect isn't just creepy music. It's the auditory hallucinations, right? That's the really insidious part.
Exactly, that's the genius of it. These mods add whispering voices, strange clicks, indistinct scuffling noises, heavy breathing, all seeming to come from just out of sight, out of the darkness. And the brilliance is they're often randomized, subtle, sometimes you'll hear something, sometimes you won't, so you're constantly asking yourself, wait, was that a ghoul breathing down my neck, or was that just the mod messing with me? Is there actually something behind me? That completely prevents you from ever feeling truly safe or certain about your surroundings. Simple exploration turns into this paranoid exercise in self-doubt.
God, yeah. And if you really want that constant unnerving background noise, that feeling of dread following you everywhere, you kind of have to break the lore a bit, don't you?
Yeah, that's where Existence 2.0 radio comes in handy, or mods like it. It adds a custom radio station to your Pip-Boy, but instead of playing, Diamond City Radio or the classical station, it plays nothing but creepy ambient horror music. Dark, atmospheric tracks. It provides this constant, low-level, unnerving soundtrack to everything you do. And it's effective precisely because it replaces one of the most comforting elements of Fallout, listening to those upbeat 1940s tunes with pure, unadulterated dread.
Okay, we absolutely have to talk about the Grim Curse. This sounds less like a mod and more like
Yeah.
weaponized psychological horror integrated directly into the gameplay loop.
Oh, Grim is intense. Yeah, it's kind of the evolution of an older, very popular horror mod called Pilgrim. Grim, or sometimes it's called Grim the Curse, is systemically very complex. It doesn't just change the atmosphere, it changes you. It starts by literally putting a curse on your player character, and now you have to follow these really cryptic clues scattered all over the wasteland to try and find a cure. But while you're cursed, your character is slowly going insane. You start experiencing these intense visual and auditory hallucinations, things warping, voices, shadows moving, and it gets worse the longer you go without finding the next clue or performing the next step of the cure ritual. And the real terrifying highlight: depending on the version and your settings, each night when you sleep, there's a chance you get transported, dragged into this unique, claustrophobic, custom-made hell dimension. And you have to find a way to escape this hellscape before dawn, or before whatever else is in there with you finds you and rips you apart. It's incredibly taxing systemically. It pushes the game engine hard, but man, does it deliver maximum psychological horror. It's not just the world that's scary. You are becoming unstable. It's a direct assault on your characters, and by extension, your sanity.
All right, atmosphere is hell, your brain is melting. Now let's talk about gameplay. Removing the safety nets, heightening the actual danger. How do modders force Fallout 4 into a true survival horror mold, gameplay-wise?
Well, the single biggest comfort blanket in modern Fallout games, combat-wise, is VATS.
Right.
The Vault-Tec assisted targeting system. It slows down or pauses time, lets you target specific body parts, gives you a percentage chance to hit. It's basically a tactical pause button, a breather in the middle of chaos. So one of the most crucial mods for a true survival horror experience is a no VATS overhaul, or mods that severely limit VATS. Removing it entirely forces you into pure real-time combat, aiming down sights, hip firing, or just running the hell away. Evasion becomes critical. It drastically raises the tension of every single encounter because there's no pause, there's no guaranteed hit. It's messy, panicked, and desperate, which is exactly what survival horror combat should feel like.
Makes sense. If you just pause time and line up perfect headshots, it kind of kills the fear factor. So you've removed VATS. Now you need enemies that are actually scary to fight in real time. Enemies that aren't just bullet sponges, but genuinely unnerving or grotesque.
Absolutely. You need threats that match the atmosphere. That's where mods like Nightmare Raiders come in. Instead of the standard kind of goofy looking raiders, this adds these unique, really unsettling marauders. They look like messed up ex-soldiers wearing this disturbing, cobbled together armor. They look vicious and desperate. It injects more of that human on human horror, that anarchy. And then for the creatures, the FTEP, Feral Ghouls Expansion Pack, is pretty much essential for a horror run. Base game ghouls are okay, but they get repetitive. FTEP adds a ton of new, diverse, really grotesque feral ghoul variants. Bloated ones, emaciated ones covered in fungus. It makes exploring ruins and old buildings genuinely terrifying again, because you never know what kind of fucked up ghoul is going to come screeching out of darkness. They look diseased, unpredictable, and utterly horrifying. It turns ghoul encounters back into those heart-stopping moments they should be.
And finally, we got to mention the big one, the most famous horror crossover mod. The one that basically skins Fallout 4 and turns it into a whole different legendary horror game franchise.
Yeah, you gotta talk about Whispering Hills. That's the definitive Silent Hill experience in Fallout 4. And it's not just a simple weather mod adding fog. It completely changes the game's reality based on the Silent Hill mechanics. It cloaks the entire Commonwealth in that signature thick, impenetrable fog. It often replaces feral ghouls with those iconic, creepy, bandage-faced nurses from Silent Hill. Sometimes you'll even get pursued by a terrifying pyramid head-like figure. And the core mechanic is the siren. You hear that air raid siren wail and the world shifts. You get dragged from the foggy but semi-normal Commonwealth into the other world, that rusty, bloody, industrial hellscape from Silent Hill. The mod literally curses the player, making them feel hunted and constantly forcing them to oscillate between these two dimensions of dread. It's an incredible piece of work, really transforms the game.
Okay, we've covered the fan-made nightmares and the modded hellscapes. Now let's circle back. Let's talk about the horrors the developers actually put in the games. This stuff baked right into the official lore. starting with that deep, creeping, ancient dread, the Lovecraftian corner of the Fallout universe.
Right. Bethesda especially clearly has some H.P. Lovecraft fans on staff. They intentionally wove cosmic horror elements into the world, and the most blatant example is everything related to Dunwich. The Dunwich Borer Company, the Dunwich Building in Fallout 3, the Dunwich Borer's Quarry in Fallout 4. The name itself is a direct, unambiguous nod to Lovecraft's story, the Dunwich Horror. And both of these locations in the games are dripping with eldritch horror. Strange rituals, reality warping, ancient evils. It's all there.
So when you're exploring these places, what are the signs?
Yeah.
What tells you this isn't just your standard raider den or ghoul nest? That something much older and weirder is going on?
Well, the player experiences these intense, often terrifying hallucinations. Flashes of pre-war events happening right in front of you, sometimes distorted or nightmarish, superimposed over the current ruins, like ghosts of the past intruding on the present. You also find these weird, crude altars, places where people were clearly worshipping something ancient and horrible. And these locations are always crawling with ghouls, way more than usual, suggesting a direct link between whatever's in that place and the ghoulification process itself. Central to all this, especially in the Dunwich Building in Fallout 3, is this strange, pulsating obelisk you find deep underground. And the lore connects this obelisk to an eldritch entity named Ugqualtoth, basically Fallout's version of a Cthulhu-esque Great Old One.
Okay, so the idea is that maybe ghoulification isn't just about radiation. Maybe in some places it's tied to this ancient cosmic horror, this Ugqualtoth thing.
That's definitely the implication the lore pushes towards. And it gets deeper. There's this really creepy tidbit mentioned in some guides about the Crivipeni. The Crivipeni is this unique, cursed book you can find in Point Lookout, the DLC for Fallout 3. It's basically Fallout's Necronomicon, filled with dark rituals. And the lore says that if you take this cursed book and press it against the Ugqualtoth obelisk in the Dunwich Building, it can force anyone nearby who has impure blood, which is interpreted to mean ghouls to burst into flames, a fiery, ritualistic death. So now you've got ancient eldritch magic being used to specifically target and judge mutated beings in the wasteland. It implies Ugqualtoth isn't just some passive, sleeping entity. It has power, and it has opinions about who belongs. It adds this whole layer of dark, cosmic judgment to the wasteland's horrors. Hashtag 3.2 physical and mutational nightmare fuel.
All right, from cosmic horror, let's shift to the purely physical, the stuff that makes your skin crawl, the mutational nightmare fuel. Feral ghouls and centaurs consistently top the community's scariest monster lists, right? But for totally different reasons.
Oh yeah. Feral ghouls are all about the jump scare, the sudden burst of violence, especially in Fallout 4, where they perfected that fake death thing, where they lie still on the ground looking like a corpse, and then suddenly launch themselves at you, screeching. Terrifying. And just the sound design. Being in a dark subway tunnel, hearing that guttural rasping, that heavy breathing getting closer, it's pure panic fuel. But the psychological horror of ghouls, the deeper dread, comes from knowing about the non-ferals, the ones you meet, talk to, trade with, knowing that they might all eventually succumb to that same fate, that their brains will inevitably degenerate until they become those mindless, raging creatures. It's this slow, inevitable, tragic decline hanging over every single ghoul survivor.
And there's that subtle detail from the older games, the one that makes killing them even more tragic.
Right.
Sure.
Sources confirm this, yeah. In the classic games, Fallout 1, 2, even New Vegas, and apparently you can sometimes hear faint mutterings from them in Fallout 3, too. When feral ghouls died, sometimes they would whisper things like, "Thank you," or "Help me," which just implies these brief, horrible moments of lucidity right at the end, a flicker of the person that used to be, trapped inside that rotting, raging shell, being released only by death. It reminds you, you're not just killing a monster, you're ending the suffering of someone who was trapped. God, that's bleak.
Yeah. Okay, centaurs, though. They skip the tragedy and go straight for pure visceral disgust, right?
Yeah.
They are just...
They are the absolute epitome of grotesque body horror in Fallout. They're the result of the forced evolutionary virus, the FEV, being used on groups of humans and animals, particularly dogs, all mixed together in the vats. The result is this shambling, pulsating amalgamation of limbs, torsos, canine heads, human heads, just fused together into this biologically impossible nightmare. Their appearance alone is inherently repulsive, but the horror gets amplified by the little details, the sound they make, that soft, wet, slapping sound as they drag themselves along, described in the lore as "pip, pip, pip." And the truly awful part, the detail the lore really focuses on, is that their multiple heads, the human bits and the dog bits, are often seen snapping and biting at each other. which implies that the individual consciousnesses, the original personalities fused into that mass, are still somehow aware, and they're trapped, suffering, and literally attacking each other within that shared mutated body. It's the horror of continuous internal self-violence, just awful.
Okay, but if we're talking peak body horror, peak psychological trauma, the moment that supposedly scarred the original Vault Dweller forever, we have to go back, all the way back to Fallout 1, to the Master's Lair, the Corridors of Revulsion. This sequence is consistently cited as maybe the single most intense, truly horrific moment in the entire series, sensorily speaking.
Oh, absolutely. That whole sequence, deep underneath the boneyard leading to the Master, it's described in the game text with just agonizing, visceral detail. The walls aren't just walls, they're described as dripping with living human flesh, pulsating, moving, and somehow still aware of your presence as you walk past. And as the Vault Dweller goes deeper, they start experiencing these intense psychic attacks, manifesting physically. Their nose starts bleeding uncontrollably, disembodied voices whisper their name. They see horrifying visions of dead friends, but with worms crawling out of their mouths.
It's the descriptions of the physical interaction with that environment that just, sticks with you.
Totally. There's that infamous bit where the game text describes the flesh on the floor starting to crawl up the Vault Dweller's leg, like tentacles of meat wrapping around them, and then teeth start gnawing at their knees. Teeth embedded in the fleshy floor. It's not just a scary visual. The game presents it as a direct, physical, repulsive violation of your character's body by the environment itself.
And the climax isn't a boss fight, it's your mind breaking down, merging with the horror.
Exactly. The psychological trauma hits its absolute peak when the Vault Dweller's own personality starts to merge with the ambient thoughts and suffering of all the dead and tortured souls fused into those fleshy walls. The game describes your character's head pulsating with excruciating pain, filled with intrusive thoughts, sins, and memories that aren't theirs. Their sense of self is literally being torn apart until suddenly the pain just vanishes, and the Vault Dweller is left standing there, weeping uncontrollably, fundamentally changed by the experience. It's total psychological disintegration, followed by this horrifying emptiness. You feel like you barely escaped having your entire consciousness absorbed into that living hell. It's the game reaching out of the screen and violating your mental space. Powerful stuff. Hashtag 3.3 Vault-Tech's existential and psychological trap.
Okay, that's the gory, physical, psychic dread. But then there's the other side of Fallout's horror coin. The cold, calculating bureaucratic evil. The real bastards of the wasteland. Vault-Tech. They didn't need monsters or fleshy corridors. They used clipboards, social engineering, and twisted psychological experiments to create their own unique brand of horror.
Absolutely. The Vault experiments, they represent this chillingly detached clinical form of evil that in some ways is far scarier than a Deathclaw or the Master because it feels so plausible, so corporate. They weren't just building shelters, they were building social and psychological pressure cookers, weaponizing the social contract itself.
And Vault 11 from New Vegas, that one always comes up as the prime example. The ultimate awful moral dilemma cooked up in a lab. Can you lay out that whole tragic experiment for us, the setup, the corruption, the civil war, the punchline?
Vault 11 is just brutal. The premise Vault-Tech fed the inhabitants was horrifically simple. You must democratically elect and then sacrifice one person from your community each year to an overseer execution chamber. If you fail to sacrifice someone, the Vault's life support systems will shut down and everyone will die. Predictably, this didn't lead to noble self-sacrifice. It led to an utterly corrupt, paranoid society obsessed with survival at any cost. Factions formed, like the Justice Bloc versus the Sacrifice Bloc. They ran smear campaigns, held manipulative political rallies to demonize potential candidates for sacrifice. Backroom deals were made constantly to ensure someone else got chosen as overseer, knowing full well that position was a death sentence.
And there's that particularly dark story involving the overseer's wife, her desperate attempt to save her husband.
Yeah, the terminal entries you find in the Vault paint this just devastating picture. The current overseer's wife was apparently coerced, really, into performing sexual favors for the leaders of the main voting bloc for weeks. She did it because they promised her they wouldn't vote for her husband to be sacrificed. And then, of course, they betrayed her. They voted for her husband anyway. Her reaction was immediate and violent. Believing she was saving the Vault from the corruption that killed her husband, she went and murdered the leaders of that bloc. And the tragic irony. The remaining dwellers, seeing her as a hero who stood up to the corrupt system, immediately elected her as the new overseer, which, under the rules they thought they were living by, sealed her own fate for the next sacrifice.
God. And her act of vengeance, meant to end the corruption, actually ignited the civil war that wiped most of them out, didn't it? Leaving just 5 survivors. And then comes the punchline. Vault-Tech's final, cold, bureaucratic knife twist.
Right. After the Civil War, only 5 people were left. And they finally decided, no more. We refuse to sacrifice anyone else. We'll die together with dignity rather than continue this cycle. They gathered, ready to face the consequences, and then the Vault's automated system played a message. It congratulated them. It revealed that the threat of mass death was a lie all along. The real experiment was to see if they would choose collective morality over mandated sacrifice. By refusing to kill anyone else, they had passed the test. They were praised as upstanding citizens, and the Vault door was opened. Vault-Tech wanted to know how long people would perpetuate an atrocity out of fear and obedience.
They never, ever had to sacrifice anyone. The sheer moral horror of realizing what they'd done, the decades of corruption, the murders, the coercion, the Civil War, all for nothing. It was too much. The lore says all but one of those final 5 survivors committed suicide right there on the spot. It's just a perfectly constructed nightmare of existential pointlessness.
It really is. It's like a Greek tragedy designed by sociopathic accountants.
Right.
The systematic, calculated destruction of the human spirit for beta points. Chilling.
Okay, what about Vault 77? The Puppet Man. That one seems less about societal collapse and more about the horror of pure, absolute isolation.
Vault 77 was a much simpler, but still deeply unsettling experiment. The setup put one single man into a vault, his only company, a crate full of hand puppets. Predictably, the guy went completely insane from the total isolation. Within weeks, according to the comic based on the concept, he started developing distinct, often violent personalities for each of the puppets, talking to them, arguing with them. Eventually, he somehow got out of the vault and emerged into the capital wasteland as this infamous, terrifying figure known only as the Puppet Man, apparently known for his extreme brutality. And the horror of this is actually canonized in Fallout 3. You can find his Vault 77 jumpsuit in Paradise Falls, and there's a terminal entry referencing his escape and subsequent reign of terror. It's a stark look at what happens when the human mind is left totally alone. It just shatters.
And then there's the Robo-Brains. Not an experiment in a vault, but still a terrifying Vault-Tech adjacent horror. That feeling of being trapped.
Oh, the Robo-Brains are pure existential dread poured into a metal shell. The concept is already horrific, taking a living, organic human brain and surgically implanting it into a robotic, often weaponized chassis. A tank body, basically.
But the truly terrifying possibility, the one the lore leans into, is that the memory wipe procedure they were supposed to undergo wasn't always perfect. It could fail.
Which means the original personality, the original consciousness, the person whose brain that is, could still be trapped inside, fully aware of their situation, aware that they are now just a brain in a jar, piloting a clunky robot body, unable to speak, unable to feel, maybe only able to obey commands, knowing what they used to be and knowing they can never go back. It's the ultimate locked-in syndrome nightmare.
Jesus. Okay, finally, let's touch on that theory of Vault 111 again for Fallout 4. We, the player, the sole survivor, think we were the experiment, right? Frozen in cryostasis. But there's that darker interpretation, isn't it? That maybe we weren't the real guinea pigs.
Yeah, it's a compelling theory, and it fits Vault-Tech's MO perfectly. The theory suggests that the frozen residents, including the player character, they were just the bait, window dressing. The real experiment was being run on the Vault scientists, security staff, the maintenance crew, the ones who were supposed to keep the place running while everyone else slept. Vault-Tech allegedly told them it was a short-term assignment, that they'd be released soon. But then, they deliberately cut off contact and supplies, leaving the staff locked inside with dwindling resources, facing starvation. The test was to see how these trained professional personnel would react under extreme duress and betrayal by their employer. Would they maintain order? Would they mutiny? And according to the terminal entries you find, they did mutiny. They killed the overseer, who wanted to stick to the protocols and tried to escape, only to likely die in the irradiated wasteland outside anyway. Vault-Tech didn't give a damn about the frozen people. They wanted data on how their own employees would break under pressure. It's just another layer of cold, calculating cruelty. #tag outro.
Wow, okay. So what we've really dug up today, I think, it just demonstrates that the horror in Fallout, it goes so much deeper than just, giant scorpions or scripted jump scares in a subway tunnel. It's systemic, it's psychological, it's driven by the community itself, creating these digital ghost stories. Whether it's the developers hitting us with that cold clinical cruelty of Vault-Tech's betrayals, or the intense physical and psychic trauma baked into the lore of the original games, or just the players themselves crafting digital folklore so immersive, so compelling that it actually convinces people it can predict the goddamn future.
Right. The very existence of things like the Doomsday RG or the sheer longevity of the Number Station creepypasta, It really speaks to how deeply players immerse themselves in this world. They're so invested in the potential horrors, the terrifying possibilities lurking just beneath the surface, that they feel this need to like blur the lines, to create stories that feel like they could be real glitches in the Matrix, real messages from a broken digital world. The game world is so fundamentally fractured and paranoid, it almost feels rational that the computer itself might try to start sending you cryptic apocalyptic warnings.
We've spent all this time digging through the nightmares, the folklore, the mods, the lore, and here's where it gets really interesting, doesn't it? We started this whole deep dive talking about the horrors of the nuclear apocalypse. So it's only right to end this part thinking about the most famous, most deceptively cheerful symbol of that exact terror.
Yeah. Let's consider Vault Boy. You know, the cheerful, winking mascot giving that thumbs up. He's everywhere in the games. Perks, lunchboxes, bobbleheads, everywhere. There's a very popular theory, and frankly a deeply macabre one, that suggests his iconic pose isn't just a sign of generic 1950s attaboy approval. It's actually a grim, cold-blooded survival tip for nuclear war. The pose is supposedly how you quickly assess the immediate danger from a nearby nuclear detonation. You stick your arm straight out, thumb up, and close one eye, sighting the mushroom cloud. If your thumb completely covers the mushroom cloud, you're far enough away. You're probably safe from the worst of the initial blast wave and the immediate intense radiation. But if the mushroom cloud is bigger than your thumb, you're too close. You're in the kill zone. Seek shelter immediately, get behind something thick, or just run like hell. Because the flash, the heat, the radiation, it's about to hit you hard. So in a universe completely defined by the bomb, obsessed with the mechanics of nuclear annihilation, that simple, cheerful, winking image, it's actually a rapid, scientific, life or death assessment of imminent, catastrophic destruction.
A thumbs up that tells you if you're about to be vaporized. Cheerful, institutionalized doom. Wow, what a perfectly Fallout way to celebrate Halloween. Welcome back to the deep dive. It is officially Halloween. The sugar rush is probably starting to wear off. The spooky seasonal depression might be kicking in.
Yeah.
And you know what that means. It's time to celebrate the truly, deeply, fundamentally messed up corners of our favorite fictional worlds.
Absolutely. We've spent the last couple of deep dives looking at the, let's say, the more mainstream monsters and the big philosophical nightmares in the Fallout universe.
Right, the stuff everyone kind of knows.
Exactly. But tonight, or, whenever you happen to be listening, we're diving deeper. We're jumping past the super mutants, past the death claws, and heading straight into the shadowy, the really unfiltered, deeply unnerving places.
Where the fans and even the developers themselves seem dedicated to making the apocalypse even worse than it already is.
That's the mission. This is part 3, Fallout's Frunked Up Fantasies.
And look, if you're settling in for a long one, maybe you're on an 8-hour flight or stuck doing something tedious like carving 50 pumpkins, I don't know. This is definitely the deep dive for you. We're going to break down the scariest concepts piece by piece.
Yeah, we're talking source material from community-created terror. First, the creepypastas, the stuff that deliberately blurs the lines between the game and, well, our reality.
And then we're hitting the official, canonical horror. The locations and lore the developers baked right in, specifically designed to exploit psychological terror.
We're unpacking it all fan-made ARGs, those terrifying horror conversion mods, and the darkest corners of the actual game lore. Fallout isn't just some retro-futuristic RPG, you know?
Oh, definitely not.
At its core, it's a horror franchise, often dealing with, like, twisted social experiments and just pure existential dread.
So yeah, we're here to synthesize all that info, give you the lowdown, and maybe, just maybe, help you keep your sanity somewhat intact.
Emphasis on somewhat. Get ready, because this is where the wasteland truly starts to unravel, and honestly, it gives zero shits about your well-being.
Okay, let's dive right into the absolute granddaddy of Fallout meta horror. The legendary, probably impossible, but utterly terrifying Fallout 3. Numbers Station Creepypasta.
Ah, yes. This one's a classic.
The sheer brilliance of this story, which, I mean, it spread like wildfire right after Fallout 3 came out in 2008, is how it completely messes with your head. It blurs that line between the game world, the capital wasteland, and our own reality.
That's the hook, isn't it? It taps into that deep-seated paranoia. What if the game isn't just a game? What if it's trying to warn us?
Exactly. And the genius part is how it starts by grounding itself in something real, or at least, heavily speculated about during the Cold War.
Right, the actual number stations. For anyone not familiar, these are real things, mysterious shortwave radio broadcasts. They just transmit weird coded messages, usually strings of numbers read out by a synthetic voice, or sometimes even a real person.
Yeah, like those creepy ones, the Gong or the Swedish Rhapsody that played weird music box tunes between the number sequences. Super unnerving.
Totally. And the main theory behind them is, well, intelligence agencies using them to talk to deep cover agents, right? Untraceably. Or maybe more relevant to Fallout?
A nuclear retaliation network. Like
Yeah.
dead man switch stuff.
Precisely. So the Fallout universe adopting this very specific, very real-world mechanism of like hidden dread. It makes the in-game concept instantly hit different. It feels plausible, unsettling, like you're hearing the last gasp of some pre-war government control, or maybe something much weirder.
And the story goes, according to the sources, that actually triggering this specific number station, making it replace Galaxy News Radio, it's a complete nightmare. Like the game itself is actively fighting you.
Yeah, the supposed method is just convoluted. It requires these specific, often kind of counterintuitive choices in the game.
First up, you gotta kill 3 dogs.
Which is a big deal, right? He's the voice of the wasteland, the charismatic heart of GNR. Taking him out is basically signaling you've gone down a darker path.
Once he's gone, he gets replaced by his technician, Margaret. And she's the opposite. Super bland, barely talks, and crucially, you never actually see her in the game. So
Yeah.
you can't kill her to shut her up. You're stuck with this, like, sterile, depressing broadcast.
But that's just step one, isn't it? This whole, like, scavenger hunt for misery.
Totally. Next, you have to skip the quest to boost the GNR signal tower. You have to keep the broadcast weak and localized. If you actually do the quest, the creepypasta says the number station won't trigger.
Kind of weird logic, but okay.
And the final big trigger, according to the legend, you have to destroy Raven Rock, the main Enclave base.
Right, that seems to be the narrative point where, like, the last vestiges of the old power structure are finally cut off, letting this hidden, deep cover signal finally bubble up.
But here's the kicker, the real piece of fan-driven dread, and the sources are clear on this.
Yeah.
Even if you do all 3 things, kill 3 dog, skip the signal quest, blow up Raven Rock, most players still just hear the regular GNR broadcasts.
Which is perfect for a creepypasta, right? It implies there are other hidden requirements. Maybe it's tied to your karma, maybe it's pure random chance. It isolates people. It makes them wonder, am I one of the chosen few? Am I lucky enough to hear this terrifying thing? Creates this horrible sense of, like, dreadful exclusivity.
Exactly. But if you do somehow hit that terrifying cosmic lottery,
The game supposedly gives you a quick radio signal lost, then radio signal found, and the signal's weak, right? You gotta be in specific spots to even pick it up.
yeah, like high up, tops of SATCOM arrays, the Ferris wheel at Point Lookout, places like that. And when you tune in, the voice is supposedly 3 dogs.
But not our 3 dog.
No way. It's Eric Dellums, the voice actor, but reading numbers in this flat, monotone, depressed-sounding voice, like he's just done. He reads out strings of single digits, 9 to 12 characters long, something like 93791722034.
And then comes the Morse code, varying lengths, followed by that haunting loop of, I don't want to set the world on fire, playing over and over.
Naturally, the community jumped all over this. Cracking the Morse code was the easy part, apparently.
And that's where it gets really weird. Because the translated messages, they weren't about the Fallout universe. They seemed to refer to our reality. Right here, right now.
Let's get into the actual decoded messages, because it's this brilliant, messed up mix of the totally mundane and the absolutely terrifying.
Some of it seems designed to throw you off, make you think it's just random nonsense, like messages saying, wash the car today, maybe Chinese for dinner.
Which is just so jarringly normal, and it becomes disturbing in that context, you know.
Totally. Or that really bizarre one about YouTube. Have you watched my YouTube video yet? I uploaded myself kicking bums in the nuts.
I mean, YouTube doesn't exist in Fallout. That's a direct punch through the 4th wall. It's the game basically saying, hey player, I see you out there.
And the timestamp given for that bum kicking video.
24.1 cent,
Okay.
December 24, 2012.
Which immediately caused this huge debate online, right? Because 24.16 isn't a real time. Military time resets at 23.59.
But that little inconsistency, that flaw, it actually made the story more believable for some. It felt like a broken system, a desperate signal trying to communicate through like a shattered clock adds to the dread.
But then you get the messages that seemed predictive and genuinely sinister, the ones that really freak people out.
Yeah, the big one was decoding a message apparently referring to Gary Coleman's death. The numbers matched the exact date and time,
Right.
1205-528-2010, followed by the words, "What are you talking about? You'll be missed." And since Fallout 3 came out in 2008 and Coleman died in 2010, the idea that this game, this piece of code, could predict a real person's death 2 years in advance, that was genuinely shocking, terrifying even.
Understandably, that success just fueled this frantic search for more predictions. The whole community turned into like amateur cryptographers overnight, poring over these supposed number sequences.
And it didn't stop there. They found messages hinting at, like, historical revisionism. One code apparently referenced the Lincoln assassination 22.15, April 15th, 1865, but added details suggesting it was a frame job, mentioning a payment to Johnson.
So now the signal isn't just predicting the future, it knows the hidden deity secrets of our past. It's a whole other level of creepy. It implies this vast hidden knowledge, this ongoing conspiracy bleeding through from a fictional apocalypse.
The sources say this whole thing led to genuine panic over some of the future predictions they supposedly found. There was one pointing to Queen Elizabeth II dying on March 19, 2014.
Which, thankfully, didn't happen. That probably grounded the story back in fiction for a lot of people. Sanity restored, maybe.
Yeah, and there was another one predicting Britney Spears winning an Oscar on February 27, 2023. Also didn't happen, obviously.
But even though those failed, the sheer anxiety they caused, it just shows the incredible power this creepypasta had over the community. It tapped into something deep.
Definitely. And maybe the creepiest message wasn't even a prediction, but that one describing, like, universal decay.
Oh yeah, that was chilling. They were warned, but they just had to keep pushing the boundaries of science. The noise, I can't take the noise anymore. And the light, dear God, the universe is slowly unraveling around us. I'm not gonna wait for death. I have a pistol in the attic.
Right. It immediately makes you think of, like, particle colliders gone wrong, some kind of Lovecraftian cosmic horror where the Great War wasn't the cause, just a symptom. Science ripped reality apart, and this signal is the echo.
And what really cements this whole thing as legendary, gives it that final sinister twist, is the supposed suppression.
Right. The story goes that as people were compiling all these interpretations, posting them on the Fallout Wiki forums, the moderators just started banning everyone involved.
Deleted the threads, put up filters to stop people reposting the content. The implication being that the mods knew something, that the information itself was dangerous.
It's the perfect ending for a meta-horror story, isn't it? The game breaks the fourth wall, it warns us, and then the gatekeepers of the lore try to shut it down. It makes the fiction feel terrifyingly real because of the alleged cover-up. That's why the Number Station story sticks around.
Now, shifting gears slightly, there's another, maybe smaller scale, but still pretty dark Fallout creepypasta. The Lone Wolf radio rumor from New Vegas.
Oh yeah, the one about the trailer near Goodspring.
That's the one. The rumor was if you tuned into a specific radio frequency linked to that trailer, like really early in the morning in-game.
You'd hear a man talking to a child and then brutally murdering them. Ugh.
Yeah, and supposedly hearing this would trigger a dark quest where you could either team up with this killer or hunt him down.
Classic sort of lo-fi grim horror. The fear isn't some monster, it's just base human depravity.
Exactly. Now, obviously, the main debunking is simple. You can't kill kids in the 3D Fallout games. Bethesda and Obsidian put hard limits on that. So a quest resulting from it is impossible from a game mechanics standpoint.
But the creepiness wasn't really about the quest, was it? It was the claim that the audio files, the sounds of the murder actually existed somewhere deep in the game's code, even if they were cut content.
Right, it's that classic implied horror. It makes players dig through files, hunt for the forbidden thing they think must be there, infecting their imagination.
So what was Lone Wolf Radio actually?
Oh, the real lore is way more mundane. It was just some pre-war conspiracy theorist safe house, full of supplies, notes about the government, the impending apocalypse. You
Okay.
know the type.
So the truth is just less interesting than the horrible story people made up.
Often the case, isn't it? It just proves sometimes the scariest things are the ones we invent ourselves to fill in the quiet, empty spaces in the wasteland.
Okay, so we've covered passively receiving these creepy signals and stories. Now let's talk about players taking matters into their own hands. Active choices.
Right. Because sometimes the vanilla game just isn't terrifying enough. And let's be real, Fallout 4, while great, definitely leans more into the action RPG side sometimes, maybe a bit more colorful than some people wanted for their post-apocalypse.
So the modding community steps in. They basically say, not scary enough, hold my Nuka-Cola. And they proceed to turn Fallout 4 into a full-blown survival horror title.
It really reveals something fundamental about a big chunk of the Fallout player base, doesn't it? For them, the apocalypse Bethesda delivered just wasn't bleak enough, wasn't oppressive enough.
They needed to fundamentally change the feel of the game, create that constant paralyzing fear that maybe, the developers kind of pulled back from after Fallout 3.
And the easiest way to start that descent into pure dread, atmosphere. Simple visual and weather mods can completely transform the game's tone. It's like giving the Commonwealth a grim makeover.
You see mods like bleak or polluted climate or senescence. What do those actually do?
Well, bleak and polluted climate are all about textures and weather. They strip out the vibrant colors, replace them with oppressive grays, muddy browns, sickly yellows. They crank up the fog, the rain, the dust storms, basically creating a proper nuclear winter feel, or just this desolate, washed out landscape.
Silent Hill vibes.
Exactly. Perfect for that kind of environmental horror. Dense fog where anything could be lurking just out of sight. Then you combine those with ENB's Enhanced Natural Bloom, basically a graphics post-processor, and you can fine-tune the lighting, the shadows, make everything intentionally dark and menacing.
But where it gets really psychologically terrifying is when mods mess with your fundamental senses, especially sight and sound, particularly at night. You mentioned True Nights.
Oh, True Nights is genius in its simplicity and its cruelty.
How so?
It just does one thing. It makes nighttime in the game actually dark, not just, dimmer blue, pitch black. Can't see your hand in front of your face dark.
Okay, yeah, that sounds rough.
It fundamentally changes how you play. Suddenly you have to rely on your Pip-Boy flashlight, but the second you turn that on, you become this glowing target in the darkness. You're broadcasting your location to every raider, ghoul, or whatever else is out there. Things you can't even see until they're practically chewing on your face.
So it forces stealth, basically, turns it into pure survival horror against unseen threats.
Precisely. It shifts the whole dynamic from combat challenge to just trying not to die in the dark.
And then you have the mods that are just outright psychological warfare, like the schizophrenia mod.
Yeah.
That sounds intense.
It is. It's by Prof. Mishkowski, and it's honestly a masterclass in messing with the player's head. It attacks your sense of certainty.
How does it do that?
It's a massive audio overhaul. It replaces tons of the game's sounds, the background music, the sound VATS makes when you target something, the little chime when you gain XP, even the main menu theme.
With what?
With whispering voices and strange sounds, unsettling ambient noises, clicks, whispers that sound like they're right behind you. So imagine you're creeping through a building, you hear a floorboard creak upstairs. Instinctively, you hit VTS to scan for enemies, right? But instead of the usual lock-on sound, you just hear this chilling whisper in your ear.
Okay, yeah, that would break me. You'd constantly be second-guessing everything. Was that a real ghoul? Or just the mod whispering sweet nothings of insanity into my headphones?
Exactly. It completely erodes your trust in the game's own feedback systems. It's pure psychological manipulation. Genius, but evil.
And there are other audio mods too, like Existence 2.0.
Yeah, that one's slightly different. It doesn't replace sounds, it adds a whole new radio station. A fan-made station playing creepy ambient tracks and these bizarre, unsettling monologues while you're exploring.
So no escape, no silence.
Pretty much. It just layers on more dread. In Fallout, silence often means safety, right? A moment to breathe. This mod takes that away. The entire soundscape becomes saturated with anxiety.
Okay, so atmosphere is one thing, but then players go for the full conversions, right?
Yeah.
Turning Fallout 4 into basically a different horror game entirely. And the Silent Hill tributes seem popular.
Oh yeah, Whispering Hills is the big one. It's a full-throttle, dedicated homage to Silent Hill, built right into the Commonwealth.
What does it actually change?
It does a lot. First, it blankets large parts of the map in this thick, impenetrable fog. Visibility drops to almost zero sometimes. Then it replaces specific enemy models. Feral ghouls become those horrible, iconic, evil bandage-faced nurses from Silent Hill. Absolutely disgusting to look at.
Oh.
And the most terrifying part, it introduces the core Silent Hill mechanic, the possibility of being cursed and dragged into an alternate dimension. The other world.
So the world itself shifts around you.
Yeah, you'll be walking along and suddenly the air raid siren goes off, the world around you decays into this rusted, bloody, industrial nightmare version of itself, and the environment becomes actively hostile. You're not just fighting monsters anymore, the world itself is trying to kill you.
That idea, the world actively rejecting you, pulling you into its nightmare, that's way scarier than just another monster model, isn't it?
Absolutely. Which leads us nicely to another really influential, though apparently discontinued mod, Grim the Curse.
What was the premise there?
Super simple, super effective. The sole survivor, your character, is literally cursed, and they're slowly going insane because of it.
So how did that manifest in gameplay? What was the horror cycle like?
It was constant. During the day, you'd start experiencing auditory hallucinations, seeing things that weren't really there, shadow creatures, distortions. basic sanity slippage stuff.
Okay.
But then, when night fell in the game, you didn't just sleep. You were automatically transported to this hell dimension, some terrifying, enclosed nightmare space. And you'd have to find a way to escape before whatever was hunting you in there found you.
Jesus. So even sleeping wasn't safe.
Yep.
Perpetual dread. You're constantly hunted day and night by things both real and imagined, and even your own mind is betraying you. That level of inescapable psychological horror. Most big AAA games wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Wow. Okay, and besides the big conversions, there are mods just focused on making the existing enemies way worse, right? Like Nightmare Raiders.
Yeah, that one adds, I think, 16 new raider types, but they're not just guys with pipe pistols. They have these deeply unsettling clothing and armor sets. The lore behind them is they're ex-soldiers who've completely turned into these horrifying marauders. Visually, they just represent the absolute bottom of human decay.
And for ghouls. Because vanilla ghouls can get kind of predictable.
Oh, yeah. The Feral Ghouls expansion pack, FGEP, is designed specifically to fix that. It adds a ton of unique ghoul variants, sprinters, crawlers, maybe even tougher tank ghouls. It basically turns any ghoul-infested ruin into a proper zombie survival simulator, keeping you constantly on your toes.
You mentioned something about a clicker mod getting removed.
Ugh, yeah, the Clickerfied Ghouls mod. It tried to make the ghouls look and sound like the clickers from The Last of Us. Super scary idea, but it got taken down because it apparently used audio assets ripped directly from that game, which is a big no-no. But it just shows how badly the community wanted even more extreme zombie threats in their Fallout.
Okay, let's quickly loop back to fan-made AIG's alternate reality games. We had the number station blurring reality. What about the Derby 00 in New Vegas? That sounds different.
It is, yeah. It's less about broadcasting messages and more about exploring the void. It focuses entirely on using glitches to clip out of the normal game map going out of bounds, or OOB specifically near the Mojave Outpost.
And what do you find out there?
Cryptic stuff, weird objects left behind. The ARG guides you on this strange journey through these empty, sterile, unfinished parts of the game world. Liminal spaces, all accompanied by really off-putting custom visuals and sound design.
So the horror comes from the emptiness, the feeling of being somewhere you shouldn't.
Exactly. The sources describe it as a feeling of descent into madness. It uses the familiar Fallout engine and assets, but twists them into something sterile, uncanny, and deeply unsettling. It's the horror of the missing, the wrongness of the space. It taps into that fear of the void created entirely by players pushing the game's boundaries.
A sort of private, glitch-based horror experience.
Pretty much. And it stands in such stark, almost pathetic contrast to that official ARG Bethesda tried to run, remember? The 1-888-4-Vault-PEC phone number.
Oh God, yes. They gave that number out to build hype for Fallout 3 and 4, right? You'd call, get this automated Vault-Tec message, promise of a long wait to talk to a consultant, generated huge buzz, tons of speculation.
And what does that number connect to now, according to the sources?
A sex hotline.
It's just perfect, isn't it? In the most depressing way possible. It's the entire Fallout experience distilled into one failed ARG, grand promises of salvation and a shiny future, followed by decay, neglect, and ending up as something tawdry and kind of sad. Dark comedy at its finest, maybe.
Maybe. Or just profoundly disappointing.
Okay.
We've walked through the fan nightmares, the creepypastas, the mods, but now we get to the really interesting stuff. Because honestly, no matter how twisted the fan creations get, some of the elements the developers built right into the games, they're arguably scarier.
Oh, absolutely. Because it's canon. It's official. And it often comes from a place of calculated, deliberate psychological cruelty. This isn't just jump scares, it's designed dread.
The original teams, and definitely Obsidian later on, they clearly had this deep, maybe slightly twisted appreciation for horror. Not just gore, but cosmic horror, psychological breakdown.
They designed entire environments just to mess with your head, to undermine your sense of reality within the game world.
And you don't have to look much further than their full-on embrace of Lovecraftian horror with the Dunwich Boar Company.
Right. This isn't just some random spooky building name. It's a direct nod to H.P. Lovecraft's story, The Dunwich Horror. And the two main locations we see, the Dunwich Building in FO3 and the Dunwich Boar's Quarry in SO4, these are where the devs just went full tilt cosmic horror.
Talk about the Fallout 4 one. Descending into that quarry.
It's incredibly atmospheric. As you go deeper, you start experiencing these flashes, these hallucinations of pre-war events. You hear a terrified worker sacrificing his buddy down at the bottom, near this weird, ancient-looking obelisk. It implies these rituals, this madness, started before the bombs ever fell.
The whole place just feels wrong. The architecture, the sounds.
It's all designed to make you feel like you're descending into something ancient, alien, and fundamentally hostile to human life. The sources mention the lore around this entity, Ugg-Qualteth, supposedly connected to the site. The real horror isn't just the ghouls you fight down there. It's the realization that this psychic influence, this dark worship, predates the entire nuclear apocalypse.
And the idea that this obelisk might even be the cause of the ghoulification in that specific area, even though it doesn't emit enough radiation.
Exactly. It suggests forces far older and darker than radiation are at play. Forces that see human civilization as just raw material for sacrifice. True cosmic dread.
Okay, but if we want pure, calculated, institutionalized psychological torture, we got to talk about the big bad smiling mascot of the whole damn series, Vault-Tec.
Oh, Vault-Tec. The ultimate evil hiding behind a friendly blue and yellow jumpsuit. They weren't building shelters to save people. They were building massive underground laboratories for 6 social experiments.
Designed specifically to see how human society would break under impossible pressure. And Vault 11 in New Vegas? That's often held up as just a masterpiece of narrative horror.
It's brutal. The premise is so simple, yet so effective. The Vault computer tells the inhabitants they have to sacrifice one resident every single year. If they refuse, the Vault's life support systems will shut down, killing everyone.
Instant dystopia, right from day one.
And what happens? Predictably, it leads to immediate political corruption, rigged elections, voting blocks forming not for policy, but for survival, ensuring someone else gets picked. But it gets worse than just rigged votes.
The terminal entries.
Yeah, they reveal horrifying details, like the overseer's wife being blackmailed into performing sexual favors for the ruling council for a whole month, just hoping they'll spare her husband from the sacrifice.
And then they decide to sacrifice him anyway.
Right. So she snaps, goes on a killing spree, murdering the council members herself, which triggers this bloody civil war inside the vault, killing almost everyone.
It's not just about survival at that point. It's the complete ritualistic implosion of their society, their morals, everything. All based on this one horrifying demand.
And the few survivors, the final 5, who eventually refuse to sacrifice anyone else, bracing for death, that's when they discover the final sick twist.
The whole thing was a lie.
The whole thing. An automated message plays congratulating them for their defiance. It reveals the computer was never going to kill them if they refused. The entire experiment was simply to see if they refused, to see if humanity, pushed to the brink, would choose compassion over self-preservation.
And the horror of that realization that all the blackmail, the corruption, the murders, the war were for nothing, based on a lie they inflicted on themselves.
It's too much. 4 of the 5 survivors commit suicide right there on the spot, overwhelmed by the guilt of what they'd become, what they'd done to each other. Only one walks out into the wasteland carrying that impossible burden.
It's just devastating. It shows how institutional evil doesn't need monsters. It just needs a believable lie and a deadline to make people tear themselves apart.
And you can connect that kind of overt narrative horror to the quieter, maybe slower burn cruelty hinted at in the Vault 111 scientist theory from Fallout 4.
Right. The common assumption is that the sole survivor and the other frozen residents were the test subjects in Vault 111. But this theory focuses elsewhere.
It focuses on the Vault-Tec staff, the scientists, the security guards left behind to monitor the cryopods.
What was their experiment?
The theory, based on terminal entries, is that they were the real test subjects. They were promised they'd be released once the all-clear signal came after the bombs. But Vault-Tec intentionally never sent that signal. They were testing how the staff would react to being trapped indefinitely, their promised release perpetually denied as their supplies dwindled.
Testing their response to betrayal and hopelessness.
Exactly. And the logs show what happened. Morale collapsed, the security team mutinied against the overseer, infighting broke out, and they basically killed each other off. Vault-Tec was studying the slow, agonizing breakdown of order when hope is systematically removed. Chillin' stuff.
Okay, shifting from psychological to more visceral. Physiological and existential trauma. And you can't talk Fallout body horror without mentioning the Master's Quarters of Revulsion from the very first game.
Oh man, yeah. That's a pure, uncut, early era nightmare fuel. Even with the old graphics, the descriptions are just potent.
The Master. this grotesque blob of mutated flesh and machine fused with a vault computer, created by the FEV, the Forced Evolutionary Virus, the source of basically all the fucked up mutants in the series.
He's literally integrated himself into the vault structure. The vault dwellers' descriptions paint this picture of walls dripping with living, moving human flesh, screams echoing down corridors made of people.
The in-game text is brutal. It says your bile rises, your nose starts bleeding just from the sensory overload, you hear voices calling your name.
And the master hits you with these psychic attacks, right? It feels like your own sins are merging with the tortured thoughts of all the people absorbed into this biomass. It's described as this maddening pain tearing your personality apart, and then suddenly, silence, which is almost worse.
It really evokes those cosmic horror ideas, like the Flood or the Gravemind in Halo. This single hideous consciousness made from hundreds of suffering victims. Body horror amplifying the psychological torment.
Absolutely, and that feeling of being overwhelmed, of helplessness, leads perfectly into the pure survival horror pressure cooker that is the Dead Money DLC for New Vegas, the Sierra Madre.
Oh, Dead Money. Just hearing the name gives me anxiety. It's designed purely to break you.
It's so oppressive,
Yeah.
relentless. Probably the most stressful piece of Fallout content ever. You're constantly juggling this triple threat.
First, the security holograms. Invincible, patrolling fixed paths. You can't kill them, you can only avoid or disable them temporarily.
Then there's the deadly red cloud, this toxic gas that blankets the whole area, constantly draining your health if you step into it, forces you onto specific paths, adds time pressure.
And the worst part, the damn explosive collars.
Ugh, the collars, strapped to your neck, linked to your companions. They force you to obey the villain, Father Elijah. They beep near active radios or security fields, giving you seconds to disable the source or run before. Pop. Instant death. Complete helplessness.
It turns you and your companions into bomb-strapped mules, constantly under threat.
And the little narrative details scattered around the Sierra Madre just hammer the horror home. Those holograms. They sometimes shout these heartbreaking phrases from the original pre-war guests trapped there, like, "Sinclair, please let me out." It confirms they aren't just robots, they're like digital ghosts looping the final moments of consciousness.
And that scene behind the stage, the three skeletons, two large, one small, surrounded by syringes.
Yeah. The implication is just devastating. A family trapped, maybe dying slowly from the cloud, and one of the parents administered a mercy killing to spare the child and themselves the agony. It shows the horror wasn't just the external threats, but the impossible soul-crushing choices forced on those trapped inside.
That's why Dead Money works so well as horror. It's not about loot, it's about escaping this meticulously designed nightmare that makes you hate every second you're fighting to survive it.
Definitely. Okay, finally, let's touch on the mutants and abominations that are scary, specifically because they're broken, twisted remnants of humanity, victims of FEV or radiation.
Like the centaurs.
Centaurs are just disturbing on a fundamental level. These horrible mashups of humans and dogs, thanks to FEV experiments, the sources highlight the psychological horror. The multiple heads seem to snap and fight with each other, their tongues lash out. They suggest they're still conscious in there, aware of their grotesque state, and just suffering endlessly.
Fused victims perpetually aware. Ugh.
And the sound they make when they walk, that wet, slapping thip, thip, thip sound is just viscerally disgusting, confirms their unnatural physiology.
And then there are the ghouls. Not the sentient ones, but the ferals. Their evolution across the games is kind of its own horror story.
It really is. In Fallout 3, they were almost pitiable sometimes. Muttering, shambling. Some sources claim they'd even whisper thank you sometimes when you killed them, like you were granting them release.
But then came Fallout 4 and 76.
Yeah, they became relentless, lightning-fast sprinters. Pure rage zombies. The sources point out the disturbing detail. You can blow off their arms, their legs, and they still keep coming at you full speed, dragging themselves, lunging with stunts. Just raw, decaying, unstoppable malice. Painful representations of physical decay weaponized.
And we can't forget the robo-brains. People focus on synths, but robo-brains might be even more fundamentally messed up from a conceptual standpoint.
Oh, absolutely. Because it's pre-war tech, pre-war cruelty. The government was literally taking human brains, often from prisoners or volunteers, and sticking them in these clunky robot bodies.
Promising immortality, preservation.
But the core horror, the canonical horror, is that the memory wipes they performed, they didn't always take. Sometimes a human consciousness remained trapped, fully aware inside that robotic shell, unable to speak properly, unable to feel, just existing. An eternal metallic nightmare that's calculated. Institutional cruelty on a whole other level.
Jesus. Okay, let's wrap the canonical section with the most fundamental horror of the Fallout universe.
Yeah.
Radiation itself. The game often makes it manageable, right? Radaway Rad-X.
Yeah, it gamifies it, but the reality of severe radiation poisoning, the sources are blunt. It's described as potentially the absolute worst way to die.
How so?
You basically melt from the inside out, cell death cascades through your body, but your nervous system, that stays intact for a long time, so you feel everything. It's unimaginable agony.
And the early games didn't shy away from how brutal radiation could be, did they?
Not at all. The glow in the original Fallout is the perfect example. It was this crater, intensely radioactive, but filled with amazing high-level loot.
So players would go in, grab everything.
And then die later, maybe halfway across the world map. Because the radiation dose they soaked up was lethal, just taking time to manifest, their playthrough just ended. Silently, inevitably. No big fight, just the wasteland claiming them.
And that final detail from the game text, you die there. Not even the carrion feeders are interested in your irradiated corpse.
Yeah. Just a final bleak statement on how utterly toxic and unforgiving that environment truly was, a death that even nature rejects. Hashtag outro, so what does this all mean? So, okay. We've taken a long, dark walk through Fallout's various circles of hell tonight. What's the takeaway? I think Fallout masters horror on two main tracks.
What are those?
First, you've got the grand, calculated, almost banal evil of institutions like Vault Tech, the horror of systems, lies, and experiments gone wrong on a massive scale, sociological terror,
And the second.
the raw, visceral, psychological dread. Born from the environment itself, whether that's the cosmic horror hinted at in Dunwich, the body horror of FEV mutations, the survival pressure of Sierra Madre, or even the meta horror bleeding through from creepypastas that try to bridge the game world and our own.
Yeah, it feels like the most genuinely terrifying things aren't always the monsters you can shoot in the face of the Fat Man. It's the stuff you can't fully grasp. The human betrayal in Vault 11, the impossible knowledge of the number station, the sheer grinding hopelessness. It's the utter failure of civilization manifesting as horror.
Exactly. It's the broken pieces of humanity that are scariest. People turning on each other in a vault, people being tortured and absorbed into a living wall of flesh, a mind trapped forever in a machine. It's that dawning realization that survival often comes at the cost of sanity or humanity itself. That the decay was inevitable because the society that came before was already monstrously cruel.
Which, fitting for Halloween brings us to one final, maybe provocative thought for you to chew on as you try to sleep tonight.
Uh-oh.
We've talked about horrors created by fans, horrors created by developers. But what about the most pervasive, most mysterious, and maybe most terrifying single entity in the entire Fallout universe? The one that follows you everywhere, is canonically almost impossible to detect, and only shows up in your absolute moment of need.
The mysterious stranger.
Bingo. He's a perk, right? A random chance for this guy in a trench coat and fedora to appear out of nowhere, blast your enemy with his .44 Magnum, and vanish just as quickly. Impossibly accurate, totally silent.
There are fan theories he tracks you via your Pip-Boy signal, right? Explains how he can show up anywhere, anytime, regardless of how stealthy you are. And we know he's more than just a game mechanic because Nick Valentine, the detective in Fallout 4, actually has an open case file on him. He's a real entity people are aware of.
And remember the lonesome drifter in New Vegas,
Yeah.
heavily implied to be the stranger's son. He carries a unique .44 Magnum that plays the stranger's signature musical sting when you draw it. It confirms the stranger is real, persistent, has family ties, a legacy.
Okay, so where's the horror? He helps you, right?
Does he? Think about it. If he can track you anywhere through maxed out stealth, bypassing every detection system, if he knows exactly when you're about to die, what's his real agenda? Why only intervene sometimes? What are his criteria?
And there's that Wilder theory too, isn't there? That he's actually Mark, a character from Fallout 1 who survived FEV exposure, gained some kind of precognition, and became effectively immortal.
If any of that is even close to true, if he's this timeless, possibly precognitive entity who knows your every move, what the hell is he waiting for? Why hasn't he ever confronted the player character directly? What's his long game?
He's just watching, waiting.
Maybe. Or maybe he's waiting until you're finally strong enough or broken enough to understand his final world-ending message. Just a thought.
Okay, yeah, that's unsettling. A truly spooky thought to end on.
Indeed. Until next time, stay paranoid, maybe double-check your locks, and try not to set the world on fire. For real.
We'll see you in the next deep dive. Happy Halloween.